Alright, folks. Welcome back, everyone. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は196日目です。It's day 196. I had to fix my microphone because Windows Update toggled the microphone off again. It happens. Alright, so today I had a bit of a late start. It's not every day that I get to speak to like 3 or 4 people simultaneously before I start the stream. It's a bit of a yap session in the background. So today I think I'm making an executive decision where we're gonna space out. It's gonna take me the next today, and we have the next 7, 8, 9. We still got 3 more days. I'm gonna try to go over the content, the topic section. So we'll leave the vocabulary on the side. I largely have a ironed out routine. So because of that, we might have to adjust our schedule a little bit. More on that on the 200th day tentative take, which will occur on a Sunday, July 19th. So I'll think about it that way. And I've ironed out a couple of other things in the background. So this is most definitely we're getting into the effectively the comfort zone of what I typically do to learn things, like to comprehend things and to find enjoyment and unnecessarily invested and passionate about things. So the SRS phase, right? The memorization and recognition phases are in the past now. They're something that I would engage in fairly sparingly. I'm not putting an emphasis on if I memorize something. The idea is anytime I see something, I have something to say about it. I have something that I want to learn from it, or I want to add something to it. So it's always adding, recalling in the sense of explaining things, not necessarily recalling if I can get the right answer. So that is going to change up pretty much the way I interact with these things, because now things like Bunpro, Wanikani, like things that have Japanese in it and things that have Chinese in it, it's a lifestyle choice now. If someone asks me a question, I will digress into a very long discussion about it. Whether that contributes to the fluency of Japanese or Chinese, that's certainly up for debate, right? Whether I am dissatisfied or satisfied with that is, in my opinion, the reason I'm doing all of this, right? Reason and motivations is why I do this. I keep that close at heart. I do not want to lose myself in the hyper focus of something that can and may become reality, or whether it may or may never become a reality. It's interesting how this works out, but to give a little bit of teaser, I want to remain discreet about this. But nearly all 4 discussions or different things that I was doing the last 2 hours, every single one of those conversations dealt with the projection of what someone is getting out of their task. And that was the central theme to every one of those discussions. And that, to me, is what I want to clarify here. If you're afraid for me, which has happened before, where a random stranger walks by and they use the fear that they have, project it, and then assure me that I should also fear this And out of that benevolence, right, out of their benevolence, which I appreciate, they would advise me based on what I should do in order to manage and control that fear or be satisfied and whatnot. And, I take into consideration at all times, and that will eventually come to play in most of my discussions and reflection and whatnot. Like, they become the stories that are part of my way of interacting with other people, and including things that I do. Now, to say that I don't keep this idea in mind, like my motivations, my personal reasonings, and my ways of improving and motivating myself to keep on going, that would be a very big understatement. Maybe for others, there are points in their lives where their inevitable goals and aspirations of their future self is the main reason why they are doing something. It is generally not my main reason. It's rarely even the driver. It's the idea of being satisfied, keeping perpetual momentum going, keeping those things at heart, like, why am I doing this? Keeping my eyes on my motivation, not the goal itself all the time, is how I keep going. So today is why, how does this fit in? How does Bunpro fit into this? Well, there was an update, right? And that topics update is fantastic for this. It coincidentally offers me a new opportunity to illustrate or demonstrate why it's so fantastic to learn another language without being overly concerned. Not saying not concerned at all, but overly concerned about one's progress, sufficiencies, or mastery of a skill. For myself, when someone asked me, which was, funny enough, involved in 3 of the 4 conversations, when one has fear and concern about doing things and the meaning of them doing things and how to get sufficient at it, I double down. I double down on the things that constantly remind me this is why I'm doing it. It is exciting. It is very fascinating. I want to talk about it all the time. So I work harder when I do that. And from that working harder, may or may not get me to that objective, that lofty objective that other people either wish for me or they wish for themselves, therefore they wish for other people. I will enjoy it. I'll continue to improve. Right? Improving happens when one is motivated to work harder, smarter, etc., without the aspect of the looming fear that you might not be good enough. That is my counterbalance and my counter argument to so many of the interesting conversations I had before getting on today. Like, there's 4 different contexts of addressing the similar thing. You do the things you do, and you can keep on doing them perpetually because you are aware of why you do them, when you do them, and if it's satisfactory enough. Not the idea that you're looking at a lofty goal of idealism and then it keeps you from doing anything. Every single one of them. Anyways, so we do have 2 grammar points. So we'll do the grammar points first, right? My voice is slightly wrecked because I've been pulling some very long P3P sessions. Okay. Let's see what we have here besides pizza. Pizza to cola. Cola ikai. Igai? Ikai. Igai. Igai. 他に requests もみ 頼みたいの頼みたいものある？
ピザとコーラ以外他に頼みたいものある？
Wow, she said that middle portion very fast. Alright. 彼女、最近、ね私、there's no wa there. That's interesting. What is that? Paleo. Oh, like paleo? Or pareo? I don't know what that is. Oh no, pareo. Food item. It's a pareo. Oh no, oh no. Pareo, a lightweight rectangular piece of fabric. That doesn't, that, oh, it is something you buy. It's kind of funny. The actual dialogue is exactly what my thought is. It sounds like paleo, like a diet. I guess it looks like it's apparently a type of fabric. Audio. Oh, actually, fictitious might say something about. Anyways, all right, we'll just take it for what it is. It's something you buy. So, パレオ買ったの。彼氏。パレオなんだなんだそれ食べ物の名前をように sounds like, wait, that's already, oh, sounds like, that patents? Or are we just doing 聞こえるそう。
彼女、
そう。
最近私パレオを買ったの。彼氏、パレオ？なんだそれ？食べ物の名前のように聞こえるぞ。
This guy doesn't emote as much. Like, dude, like some prosodic emoting. 最近、私、パレオ買ったの？パレオなんだそれ？食べ物の前のように聞こえるそう。Actually, this is whole thing is interesting at the end. I'm not. Maybe it deals with the like. It's complimenting the like. All right. Okie dokie. Now let's get into. Yeah, I have a slight in the back of my throat. I have a slight like soreness in the back of my throat from the combination of the topics, right? Doing the topics and then the like back-to-back days of lots of discussion. So I'll try to be a little bit more modest today when it comes to talking. All right. So let's see. Lesson 2. Things are necessary to use basic types of verbs. That's right. I don't think we covered verbs yet. Interestingly enough, you can still say a bunch of essential things without covering like the generalization of verbs. Okay, so who did that? Add a subject to sentences. Yep. Now we get to the subject marker as opposed to the topic marker. Alright, let's get into this. In this topic, we're going to meet the subject marker particle, ga, which, funny enough, plenty of people have constantly in the early days constantly keep on clarifying or being like very vocal about, where like wa is sometimes defined as the subject marker when it is the topic marker, right? And it's more of a technicality because in some sentences they can be seen as the subject, like the indicating the subject, so a subject marking particle, right? However, the formal distinction between the two is that the wa particle is the topic marker. However, the topic could inherently ambiguously in English be the subject. The topic and the subject can be one and the same when interpreting something. However, in the way of the grammar, or however the English grammar description of these things, wa is the topic marker and ga is the subject marker. As the name suggests, it marks the grammatical subject. This is exactly what I mean. It marks the grammatical subject of a sentence, which ambiguously, and that creates ambiguity because the subject of an English sentence is not necessarily the topic of the sentence. So hence the inevitability of using the classic or like maybe a now standardized description of ga as a subject marker. It is to distinguish it from wa being the topic marker in the grammatical sense. That does not circumvent the idea that the word subject can be referring to the subject of the sentence or the subject of the topic, which creates a ambiguity. Now, some would say, well, why don't they just make it different? Well, why don't languages just not ever overlap? That's coming from the point of logic and selfishness as opposed to understanding the nuance between interlanguage and inner language, right? Intra and interlanguage interactions. Subject in this case now for me is a homonym, or maybe not even a homonym, but more like alternative meanings for the word subject, right? Are you referring to the subject of the sentence, the subject marker, or the subject that's serving as a topic, or the subject of a sentence as in the topic of a sentence, not the subject that is in the sentence, right? All of these things are part of learning language and their nuances. If you can differentiate, or if one can argue you can differentiate between wa and ga, which is a nuance, one would be encouraged to understand that when you're describing grammatical things, it's also a technicality when it's describing literal things in the sentence, right? So for me, when someone says they refuse to understand the nuance of ambiguity of using the word subject, but still say that it is important to learn the ambiguity and nuances of the wa and ga particle, that is what I would call a double standard. That is saying you only want to know what you want to know, not because you want to know things for the sake of completion or comprehension or comprehensiveness, right? So that is a choice you make, right? For me, it's a bit of conflict of interest. You think it's very important that the language you like, you want to know all the nitty-gritty and pedantically argue about it, while the language that you don't care about anymore, you prefer to make it simplified and contrasting. That's how I would understand it. Any news on my end? Not particularly, other than meeting new people and talking about Persona all the time. Yeah, we talked a lot about Persona. Oh, besides this new feature that we're talking about here in Bunpro, where they're discussing topics of interest when learning Japanese. How are you doing, Proko? Okay, my voice is a bit raw from like the last 3 or 4 days of very long discussions. Are you in a conversation with a YouTube chatter, or was I just rambling? No and yes. So no, it's not a YouTube chatter, but yes, it is a rambling that deals with chatting. So like before I started streaming, I'm like an hour over, like an hour, 3 hours later. It's largely because I was chatting with a lot of people before the stream, and that was what I was talking about. Yeah, I saw it was 1-1 until like the extra time, the extended time, and then Argentina scored. So here's the subject marker, right? So 私が走る, which is
私が走る。
私, so like I, the subject, is doing the running.
私は頭がいいです。
頭がいいです. Oh, that's an interesting example they used. To be smart. To be smart is a special phrase that deals with atama, the head. Atama is good. Atama ga ii desu. So it's actually a stock phrase. This is a special stock phrase to have a good head. I have a good head as the way to express being smart. Ga, I think we're good. I don't think ga has what's the caution? Ga is not usually used to describe something about yourself unless that's a good caution. If you want to talk about yourself in general terms, wa will sound more natural. That's a good one. Alright, let's go to our detail section. As we've just learned, wa raises how do you feel, Prokal? Are you sobering up? Now what are you gonna do with your extra time? As we just learned, wa raises a topic and a comment follows, while ga tends to emphasize what comes before it, as in the subject doing the action. Let's look at 2 concrete ways this works in practice. The spotlight. Imagine there's a spotlight shining upon a stage. Wa is the scene, so the light saturates the whole thing, the topic of the conversation, right? Buildings, you see everyone in around the buildings, right? So while ga, the spotlight will then narrow in onto the thing that is before ga. So while ga is where that light is illuminating a specific actor, the subject, right? So this usually the subject, the person, actor. The language you're interested and want to get into the nitty-gritty and argue pedantically. Your last stream, the last language you no longer care about, you prefer to make it simple and contrasting. Me last stream. You saw that correlation between what you just said in our last stream? Yeah. When it comes to the here's a bigger, like a wider theme that I have, which we discussed yesterday. Oh, to answer your news from yesterday, I talked to someone during my P3P playthrough, I refer to this person as Sho. We met the person on Twitch 2 days ago and yesterday. They returned yesterday. They're part of the 1%, so the person that stayed for 3 hours back to back, even, to discuss certain things, right? They're from New York, a neighbor, and gone through ups and downs, as you might have expected, because there's pre-selection for these things when I'm like streaming. So it's a person that's gone up and downs, recovering from, trying to get up, becoming a functional adult again, trying to tolerate the rigors of life, right? The drudgery of life. So you can probably find this as a common pattern. Now, we talked yesterday about being in the moment. P3, Persona 3, one of the core tenets, or like the messages in the game, is to be in the moment. Whether you understand the inevitabilities of life, or one of the inevitabilities of life is time goes on and there is an end, right? That type of thing. We won't go too much into those because the focus is in the moment. So to highlight this, one of the news is the idea of investing in the moment. So much like our last stream, now that last stream will become evident in the present stream. So for me, a common pattern is that we are pedantic and invested in the moment. I often do not trivialize what is in the moment if we had to consider something over something that happened in the past or something that is to be or coming to be. So usually when I need to talk about, like, if someone wants to talk about something with me, the weight would be placed in the moment as opposed to trying to elevate something in the past. Now, the stuff in the past will elevate what's in the moment. So when I'm reflecting in retrospection, usually I don't want to draw too much attention to the past, but develop something in the present with something in the past, which is what we're doing right now. That's why I'm bringing up what the person that I met 2 days ago, and we had a discussion from yesterday to today. And it's usually one of the major discussions was the themes in Persona 3. And Persona 3's themes deal with the inevitability of death and the inevitability of life's circumstances, while also finding solace and reward in weighing and constructing memories and spending the time you have, as opposed to like sitting there with fears and anxiousness of what is to come or what may or may not come or come to happen, which is interesting because the reason why I am the eventuality, I like that. I didn't realize that I accidentally wrote 2 words in one. It does happen though, when my mind moves faster than my typing skills, right? This used to happen very often, Procol. Like when I was younger, I had problems with regulating my thoughts. So when I'm speaking, it comes off disjointed. I'm not sure if you see this in like people around you, if you ever talk to someone where when they talk, they fail to complete the idea or fail to transition into another idea deliberately. So it becomes abrupt. Like, hey, yeah, the soccer game, like the football or the soccer game was great. And then they're like, oh, and the math homework was bad. And then you're like, wait, how'd you go from, how are those related? That's used to be me, where the gap between how quickly I express something versus how quickly I'm thinking are asynchronous, or like they don't synchronize very well. And it also translated into my writing. So when you're writing like a story, for example, or an essay or professional writing, you have to slow down because you're trying to write it in a coherent way, right? The whole idea of coherence. You're not blisteringly putting everything down, and then suddenly it feels like it's a jumbled mess of a lot of things. You see the connections. However, when you type it to another person, when you write another thing, when you tell a story to someone else, you're making the assumption that they can follow you, which that is one of the examples that I've noticed in my life, where sometimes if my thoughts escape or speed past, it's not as frequently nowadays. It is funny though. I think it's funny. It does remind me, it's a sobering thought about how speaking and practicing speaking, writing, and public speaking versus generalized speaking, as well as instructing, have allowed me to slow my mind down so that I can articulate and not necessarily go beyond. And obviously, from how long we have noticed, like how long we have conversed, there are still moments where if I become unhinged, right, which can happen when I'm passionate about something, my logic can be incredibly unhinged. And we had most of those moments in the last couple. Like the message you gave me was in referring to the last time we talked, right? And there were a lot of leaps of logic. I'm very critical of other people's leap of logic because it's something close to me. I leap logic a lot of times when I was younger. It's to the point where it is very difficult for people to follow me even on these simplest tasks, like the trivial tasks. And when I'm typing, which I typed in Discord today, right? The stuff that I was typing in Discord, which by the way, Coffers is here. I was chatting with Coffers, typing a response to drama in the Discord, which you can see, conversing with another person and responding to you, Procall, and talking to 2 other people for 2.5 hours before I started streaming. And no, this doesn't happen on a regular basis. It coincidentally, today happened to be the day. So my mind was like, we were typing, like we were on engaging level, like doing 5 or so asynchronous conversations at the same time. That gets my juices going. Now, hear me out. When I typed in eventually, I was speaking to someone over voice and typing to 2 other people at the same time. So things go fast. Unfortunately, I would lose people. So over like maybe 10 plus years, I learned to slow down and focus on other things. So focus on articulating, making sure all of the subjects are covered again, so that overall whoever I'm speaking to will likely stay on point, or like they wouldn't become disinterested in a way that, dude, this guy's like speaking like, how did this person get from point A to like point B even? I don't even know how does A relate to B, which still happens. If you read my Discord things and whatnot, when I'm typing like long paragraphs, they're very technical because I'm not really talking to anyone. I simply have myself to type as vigorously dense as possible. So most of my Discord messages and stuff are incredibly dense, and they're dense to a point that it may be unapproachable. It's a self-indulgent though. I would be lying if it's not, if I am saying I don't derive a bit of pleasure from being overly pedantic and overly technical with my vocabulary. When I type, I kind of take some liberties as opposed to speaking. Speaking, like in this format, I have learned to exercise restraint for the most part. You notice yourself doing that somewhat successfully when conversing with people you're very close with. You're very close with, as the connections are often both in the forefront of both of your minds. Yeah, exactly. Isn't the new patch out for P5X? It is not. It is tomorrow. It will be tonight for me the patch, the maintenance is happening right in 1 hour. It's typically at 10 p.m. today, and then it will end. The maintenance patch usually ends at 3 a.m. between 3 a.m. and 5 p.m. EST. So between your midnight and 2 a.m. and I check on it, and then the next day I cover it. So tomorrow is going to be the P5X first half of the summer event. And I still haven't figured out how I'm gonna cover the second half because I'll be away at Otakon. It's on the 30th. It'll be the first day of Otakon. I'll be taking the sun potato with me. I'll be taking Sun with me to Otakon. You want to both apologize to you for sending jumbled connected chats, but also commend you for your ability to notice the connection, as that is always an incredible help to keeping our conversations coherent. It does, right? I think, and also it's related to that pedantic thing where occasionally I would say your name, right? Like I would say Procol in the middle and whatnot because of the making sure it's not an insistent. It's one of those adaptive things where it's not an insistent in assuming that you're not listening or I might lose you or you might be preoccupied. It's a natural reflex to be accommodating. So I don't want, whether you want to use it or not, it can be a point of like, getting adapted to it. I don't mind someone saying my name every once in a while to gauge whether they're interested or not. Like it's not I don't find it offensive. Of course you would have to accept or reciprocate or feel comfortable with this. I don't I don't prefer or need someone to constantly feel like they are obligated to think I'm interesting, because there are things that we may not share that are not interesting. I feel like for myself, it's my responsibility to make it interesting for you. So those are the predilections I have, at least within our minds, even if it's far from it, that in an outsider's point of view. Exactly. That's what the intimacy, right, that comes from long discussions. Like the conversations we have, I still share those stories with other people. However, it wouldn't ever substitute for the depth of the human experience that we have. That's what makes it. I know you didn't say unique, like you were trying to talk about how the uniqueness, the concept that you had, I agree with you. It's like, it's not, I know what you were referring to by not emphasizing how unique it was, but the aspect of it. However, the routine itself can be shared with other people, as in you can share with other people, you can engage in that same concept with other people, so it's not unique in that way. However, the experience, in my opinion, would have a sense of uniqueness in a different way. Not the act being unique, but more so the feelings, the emotional investment. Otherwise, I feel like I may not have added too much to it. Like, I understand pleasantries is a wonderful thing. I use pleasantries for the most part for those who want to keep pleasantries. However, it pales in comparison to the conversational investment. Like when you have those things. Like if you have to say you have to be there to understand, I think I try to strive for that. Whether, like, if I say potato, for example, if I use the word potato, Coffers and you will have two separate impressions of what I mean by potato. Like, the way you understand me, Procol, when I say potato, is probably not the same way Coffers understands me when I say potato. And that's what makes it unique, right? When someone asks me, do I speak to people the same way? Like this is where a lot of times I have a bit of friction. There are people that I've met in my life who they want to be treated the same as anyone else. And the problem with that conflict of interest is I don't treat people the same. Like, we're not talking about fundamentals, like the right to an opinion or like liberties and stuff. I legitimately treat people differently because they are different. Like, I celebrate that they're different. I don't want to change, like, Prokar, I don't want to change you into a gold generic standard that I treat everyone else. Like, that's what I mean when someone says, oh, why do you speak to me differently from like this person? And that's where I got into trouble several times, because sometimes when I'm speaking to females and speaking to males, they would think it's about gender. Like, oh, why do you always speak to me this way? Is it because I'm female? And I'm like, no, it's because you're a different person. Like, you have propensities. You come from a different cultural background. You have different preferences. I scrutinize you because you do things differently. Not that you're somehow, like, I have some blanketed routine where I would apply rules across a group. I don't have that many friends. Like, real talk. I don't have that many friends. I absolutely believe it is a privilege to have a significant number of friends. So it would be, in my opinion, it would be disrespectful of me to lump all of my privileges, my rare friends that I have, and treat them like they're generic, like a generic checklist, right? So the jokes that I make with coffers is not the same jokes that I make with you, Prokal. The way we have humor is not quite the same as coffer's humor. And that happens. And if you're wondering, so what happens when all your friends, like all my friends, happen to be in the same place? It's very unlikely that they're in the same place. However, they are, then they will find out that I actually speak very similarly. See what I mean by that? Like, if some of my friends naturally collect together in the same situation, then they will find similarities on how I speak to them, because those similarities will come through in the way I'm talking about it. Like, for example, Offers and Sun, we spend some time together, so there are inside jokes between the three of us, not just the two. So that's kind of the idea. Like, things that are different stay different. Things that are the same will inevitably be the same. Coffer's giving me that side eye, huh? So the countdown was just the contract ending. Oh yeah. So Coffers, about the contract ending on P5X, they kind of got desynced a little. Coffers. Originally, it was exactly down to the minute. Right? Like, when the minute counts down, the patch just, they start maintenance, basically. The countdown, when the countdown starts, it's exactly the time when maintenance starts. However, because of the P5X, like, they were accelerating and they were, like, moving things around, it got desynced by, like, an hour. So now patches happen, like, an hour after all the countdowns are up. They're trying to sync it back up. But usually the countdown is to the maintenance. So if the countdown is done, that means maintenance is going to happen soon. You sent me on Discord your average reaction to you saying my name partway through the scene chat. Oh, okay, hang on. Is this an emote? Am I expecting an emote here? That's pretty funny. And of course, Coffer sends an emote too, like earlier. The two of you use you and Coffers use emotes very, very differently. Would you consider you a friend? Of course. Now, like friends, there are different types of friends, right? Like it's not a competition, right? But there are different types of friends, obviously. You don't ask that in a begging, please say yes way. I'm just curious as to who and why you define as friend. When you're multitasking while you're conversing, you say my name just get you off guard. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I refer to different types of friends. Like Coffers and I are friends. Probably not in the same way that we are friends. We do, Coffers and I, like, in my opinion, I don't think. We'll let Coffers give me the side or something. The conversations you and I have pro call, I don't think I've had one conversation like that with Coffers in over 5 years. Like, not, it hasn't happened. So if we're thinking about like friends, about uniqueness, right? Things that friends have, things that are unique, they are cherished, and they are hard to identify or isolate because that's what brings you closer. Despite time, a lot of times people use time as a value system, right? Like, oh, you spend like 100 hours with this friend, but you only spend 10 hours with this friend. And that means that obviously the friend that you spend 100 hours with will know everything, and the friend that you spend 10 hours with will know less, and therefore the 100-hour person has more value, so they are a better friend than the 10-hour one. It doesn't quite happen the same way for me. I try my best to be the best person I can to anyone who gives me the time of day. So that also means that if somehow, maybe like 5 years from now, I'm in a position where I'm at some place and like 20 different friends of mine somehow have a common interest to be in the same place, but they're dramatically different friends, that I want to see. I genuinely want to see how like the 10 or so different people have a common interest. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's like, I don't want to be like, this sounds way too narcissistic, but say I was the reason. Like there was 10 people who is going to somewhere because of me. So then if they can be 10 different friends, like different types of friends, and if they come together, that would be a sight to behold. Because genuinely the people that I've conversed and made friends with online, they are remarkably different people, and I am not one to discourage that. Like, if you know me, I tend to want to do what you want to do, and then we build from there. The becoming friends is the basis of compassion. So my behavior and how I act and what people know me as is based on how they act and what they know to do. So like my behavior around Coffers is very different, and not a good or bad thing, and it's not the best thing or the worst thing. It's how I choose to live my life, right? My sister literally told me this before, even when I was like 18. One of the things I do is like occasionally we would meet each other's friends, right? And when it is in the context of my friends, my sister said this before, you act very differently around your friends. And I'm like, yeah, I do, right? And I double down on this. So I love to see what would happen. Not that I want to force the situation. It would be very interesting to see what happens when you take all the different friend circles, which I say discreetly. If it's made public, then I'll refer to like you, right, Procol, and Coffers. If it's public, like I'm assuming if it's public, oftentimes you guys are comfortable with it. Now, anything that's discreet, those things stay discreet. So I don't like bring other people who are uncomfortable with sharing into the spotlight. So if you guys ever meet each other, like the group of you, like, hey, I know this guy and you know this guy, and then suddenly you guys converse, it would be very interesting to hear what you guys think. Largely because I speak with different voices. I code switch with different voices all the time. It is the different types of friends that I could have or may have is what we think of you. No, like what you think that I am like while talking to each other, or how you think you interact or should interact with me while you're talking to each other. Like, what do you guys do? Like, oh, how do you know, right? Like how you know me or how I know you. Like I spend most of my time talking about how I know other people. Like if Coffers ask me, what have I been doing? Well, yesterday I was talking to Procall. So I'm describing you, Procall, to Coffers. And then when two people meet, like for example, if Mika shows up, right, I would introduce you guys because both of you guys are in the UK. And the way I introduce people is what I use my communication for. So naturally, it would be interesting to see what happens when I am not the person describing someone. Whether you guys describe to each other. And hear me out. It's super cringy. Like, to me, like, you know, cue the meme about Japanese people. Like, it's very hard to hear, like, what other people think about yourself. Like, you know, you probably cue a content creator like, oh, let's read someone else's evaluation of me, right? Like when you become a content creator and you put yourself out there, and then there are like talk shows that interview you and say like, hey, let's go read some of your community's comments about you. That stuff is, when I was a teenager, I completely avoided that. Like feedback. So it's not as bad now. Like I'm far less avoidant of that thing now. I'm more curious of that. It doesn't remove my innate cringiness of hearing other people talk about me while I'm listening to it. So despite that, you need those things to be critical of yourself. So I've gotten more used to it and accustomed to it when I was in graduate school, right? Like, because your committee evaluates you, they argue and like debate on your strengths and weaknesses. It's very tough, and I think it's something that youth online tend to avoid. They do not like to listen to critiques of themselves for what better or worse, or even if someone is disagreeable and they ask you how much they hate you. I legitimately am curious when someone says, they come up to me and they say they hate me. It's like, please explain. So usually I'm a little bit more receptive to why people hate me than why people like me situation. Well, you're yeah, so what we think of you. He switches to the punching bag voice with me. Yeah, there's a lot of offers like that circle. We throw jabs at each other. So like Procall, I don't like say, yo, hey Procall. So does it suck that England lost to Argentina? Sucks to suck. That would be something that would be like a cheeky response or something. Maybe we'll engage in some of that in the future. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's the eye of the beholder. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder is a great Twilight Zone episode, by the way, Procall. If you ever want to watch a awesome like old school sci-fi, I don't know if you've seen it. Episodic, because Twilight Zone's episodic, so you don't have to watch the entire series, but The Eye of the Beholder is a really excellent episode in the Twilight Zone about beauty is the eye of the beholder. I I won't spoil it. You should really watch it. Honestly, it's a really elegant one. They subverted and used role reversal. Sticks in my memory all the time. Anyways, let's try to complete this topic lesson here. Again, emphasis. My pedanticness about treating people differently, we're not talking about, again, civil rights or right to like opinions and like the basic foundations. When someone asks me why do I speak to them differently, my quick answer is that you are different, at least to me. So that is the point. If you're someone who's uncomfortable and want to be treated and be talked to like everyone else, like when you say, am I a better friend than your other friend, it's going to be difficult for me and that person. That's an inherent principle, like a conflict of interest in our values. The reason why I don't value one friend over another, or like specifically bias myself to preferentially help one, like choose one friend over the other, or like compare apples and oranges, is because every friend is precious to me. So like time, and it is very inherent that they will eventually become different. Now, if they are coincidentally similar, that I leave that up to coincidence. Like, you might like the same game that Coffers like Pro Call. You and Coffers might like the same games. I have no idea. You guys might have the same lifestyles, which I'm actually, technically, I know what the answer. You and Coffers don't like the same games, Pro Call, period, at the moment. And you and Pro Call belong, like Coffers, you and Pro Call don't live similar lifestyles, not even close. The odds of you guys talking to each other, fairly good, actually. The topics you would talk about each other, now that is an interesting thought, what you guys would talk about each other without me mediating, obviously. When you were 12, you uploaded a clickbait Overwatch video. You got told your voice sounds like you swallowed a cactus, and that I should. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad you're laughing about it. I think you would really enjoy this video debating large-scale applicability versus individuality. I will add it, and I will tell you about it at another time. Oh, wait. I think I've seen this. I do need to review what's in it, though. Yeah, this is when, yeah, this one was controversial. It's probably the most politically polite but controversial meeting that I watched between Dr. Mike and Dr. K. Yeah, the coming of two individuals. And I know what the topic matter is when it came to applicability and individuality. Yeah. That one is a good one. That's a good video. Between the Dr. Mike, not the fitness guru Mike, but Dr. Mike, the practitioner, the medical practitioner, and then Dr. K, not the other two Dr. Ks, but the Dr. K from the GG Healthy Gamer channel. Their names, Mike and K, like how many they could possibly have that would end up with Mike and K is pretty high. I mean, I have several Mikes who are doctors. Like me personally, in my life, in my college career, right? Like in my educational career, I know 5 Dr. Mikes. Like, they could have gone by the name Dr. Mike. Although they would go by their last name, obviously, as opposed to their first name. Oh, man. It's like Men in Black. Yeah, Agent M and Agent K. Like, it's gonna hit so many of them. So it is funny, right? I admire their ability to get those names. Or actually, even Dr. K didn't even use, his channel doesn't even use his name. So, and I can't pronounce the other part of his name, so I'm not gonna try at the moment. Actually, Dr. Mike is Slavic, Russian. So his last name is like something that ends with a ski, probably. I'm overgeneralizing, but his name, he's part of an immigrant family. So Dr. Mike also has a last name that is not like multi-generational American or something, or colonial in that way. They are both multicultural, which is not a big coincidence, obviously. To me, at this point, it's not a coincidence that if I say I know the people or have seen the people or watched a video, a long format video by a certain possibility, they are going to be likely have a multicultural background. Because the internet knows me so well. All my data. Sorry. I'm not trying to victimize myself. I actually think that's the nice part about the internet. The internet does this so well, it does it to a fault, obviously. Like, it's no longer a coincidence that the vast majority of people that I follow or watch videos of happen to come from a multicultural background. Alright, so the spotlight. So we got 誰があなたの父ですか？父ですか？あれが私の父です。Okay. Fair enough.
A、誰があなたの父ですか？ B、あれが私の父です。
Wow, that was a lot more enthusiastic than I went for it. Prosodic stress, right? あれが私の父です。Like really assertive. I was being a little more monotone and less eventful, but neat. I really like the person who decided to voice this. She's very she's bouncy. We'll learn more about questions like dare, right, on a later one. Zooming in. Sometimes we can see wa and ga in the same sentence. This is a very common pattern, regularly used to describe things like body parts or attributes, right? Honda wa背が高いです. So Honda's regarding Honda, right? His or her back. In this case, they're inferring that it's a male. His back is tall or high or of high stature. So the back is the thing that is tall, not necessarily him. He is the topic. So that on the topic of him, his back is tall. So the focus is the back. So you can kind of see like, so the spotlight example, right? The spotlight example. Now you have the floodlights, you have a scene. Mr. Honda is standing on the stage, right? So like, here's a scene. Maybe we have like a tree and then a person standing here, right? And then the floodlights are flooding the whole scene. Now the spotlight ends up on him. And then when we zoom in to his back, it is tall. So that's kind of the idea where it's always zooming in. The ga is always the subject of your sentence, and the wa is the overall topic, which is a great way to think about it, the spotlight and zooming in situation. here Wa tells us that we're talking about someone called Honda, right? And then Ga zooms in to tell us specifically what about Honda is tall, being his stature or his back stature, his spine. All right, who's in class? Oh, okay. This is a weird perspective. Like, this desk is here and there. Okay. we're not critiquing artwork here. I like the cute illustrations. All right, so let's just listen to this as opposed to reading through it.
たかし、あれは新しい留学生ですか？エミリー、私の友達です。彼は頭がいいです。トミー、僕も頭がいいです。たかし、たかし、あの綺麗な女の人も留学生ですか？エミリー、彼女は日本人。私が大好きな先生です。面白い、楽しい授業の先生。トミー、僕も先生が好き。たかし、僕は静かな授業がいいです。たかし、背が低い女の子は学生？トミー、青い帽子の女の子？たかし、トミー、彼女は先生の子供。エミリー、
かわいい。
かわいい。
So, all right. So, Takashi, I don't know which Takashi it is. It's one of these guys here, right? Takashi said, "Are wa." So, there's a new foreign exchange student, right? New foreign exchange student. That's what they're pointing at. Like, there's a new foreign exchange student. Like, then, Emily is, we'll just say it's her. Right? She's like, yes. Or actually, no, it's not the sensei. So it's like, yeah, she's my friend, right? Or we're friends. Or she's my friend, and then she's very smart, right? Or implying she here because, or he is. Wait, actually, kare wa atama ga ii desu. Ii. Okay, well, he's very smart. And then homie, someone else, homie, like one of these guys, that like, well, I'm smart too, or like I'm also smart. And then Takashi, the other guy's like, And then the same guy who's questioning the other guy's intelligence, that, well, there's a cute girl, she's that person, there's also like a cute girl foreign exchange student, right? Or like the girl is also cute. And then Emily said that the girl is Japanese, right? Our teacher, we really love our teacher, or the teacher is very loved, right? Oh, interesting. And also, I wonder how Tanoshi is working. It's saying the school, the new, like the work, the school work is fun. Like the teacher's schoolwork is interesting, right? Or fun, right? And then Tomi, the guy that thinks that he's also smart, he says, well, I also like the teacher. And then Takashi, the other guy who's like a bit jaded, he said, something about like concerning me, quiet work. I do like quiet work, like a quiet class. Oh, sorry, class. Sorry, class is what they're referring to. So it's the teacher has a fun class, and they're like, well, I like a quiet class. And then he says like, well, that girl is that short person, right? Is that short person a student? Sorry, is that short little girl here a student? And then Emily said, you mean the girl with a hat, right? The girl with a blue hat. It's a blue hat. You have to use your imagination. Then Takashi said, yes. Like, because are you referring to the girl in a blue hat? And Emily's like, yeah. The girl is the sensei, is the teacher's child. So this teacher is that child. And then Emily was, or not Emily. Oh wait, Emily. Oh, Tomi. Oh, Tomi is saying that it's the person is acknowledging that it's a girl, and then the enthusiastic girl said like that's very cute. Like the kid is cute. So it's just a bunch of people looking. It's like, oh hey, we have a foreign exchange, right, student, and we're talking about the foreign exchange student. Integrated a bunch of things, which obviously we can translate it here. Bunpro offers all the translations. Right. I think I should do it that way instead. As we're going. So is that a new exchange student? Yep. He's my friend. He is smart. Right? I'm like, oh, maybe that's what they're referring to. Oh, okay. So two different people. Is that I'm smart too? Is the gorgeous girl an exchange student too? So now they're here. And then Emily is like, she's Japanese. It's the teacher I love. She's a teacher with fun and interest. So this teacher. And then I like the teacher too. For me, I like quiet classes. This one was a little bit like, that was a little weird. It's like, cool story, bro. The situation. Like, all right. Thanks for sharing. And then and then they're talking about the short girl now, which happens to be the teachers. So new exchange student. So it's not clear whether I got a little lost where I was imagining they mean the little girl as a new exchange student. And then they suddenly talked about the teacher, right? And then the gorgeous girl. And I'm like, okay. So that's where like sometimes you have to infer by context. Does Chinese have a big focus on suprasegmentally? I don't know what that means. Can you explain to me what suprasegmentally is? We're gonna do another topic here. So that was my struggles with contextual Japanese, I suppose. Put some emotion into it. Add emotion and nuance to sentences with sentences ending particles. Oh yeah, like yo and ne. For confirmation and emphasis, right? Different forms of emphasis. So like, right? Isn't it? Right? With an exclamation mark versus right? Isn't it? Versus isn't it? Or isn't it? So bruh, right? The different bruhs. Basically, this is the different bruhs. In this topic, we'll be going about 3 sentence ending particles. Yo, ne, and na. While also see how yo and ne can work together as yone, or yone. As the name suggests, sentence ending particles are just particles which tend to come at the end of sentences. They are often used to add emotion or nuance of some sort, and come in all sorts of different flavors. I say ne a lot, as opposed to my other filler words when I'm reading Japanese, which is a natural, it ends up being a natural inclination when you're used to it. When I talk to my father, right, in Fujianese, I would have a natural ender. Like, abayo, jane, like, so there's a like, a natural like ender for most things. And bruh would be like the quintessential Gen Z, like the new age NetSpeak English version of putting emotion into it would be bruh. Like, that's cool, bro. Bro, that's awesome. It doesn't actually even have to be an ender because it's becoming ubiquitous everywhere, but generally speaking, like, I know, right? That sucks. You know what I mean? Those are the English enders, right? So there's yo, ne, and na fills those roles analogously. And I say ne a lot, like, this week. What is this week? Konshu? Ne? Konshu. And then sometimes I would say ne at the end. So yo, ne, and na are three of the most common, with yo adding emphasis to new information, which is like right. Like it's going to rain this Wednesday, right? Versus isn't it, which is a little softer, I would say. Ne being used to show agreement or sharing feelings and not showing emotional emphasis. In fact, I don't think we have a grammar point on na, which is interesting. So, 今週の水曜日は雨だよ. Gonna rain on Wednesday, right? You know is fine too. And it's like a pyramid. Like it's like a degree of stuff. So this they use right, but it could be isn't it as well. And then it's an explanation, so they're trying to be more there's a prosodic stress here. So you could say isn't it authoritatively, like the mountain is big, isn't it? Versus the mountain is big, isn't it? Or the mountain is big, isn't it? Right? In English and Japanese have different ways of going about that. So that's kind of what it's trying to illustrate. So, yama wa ookii ne. And then, yuki? Yuki wa tsumetai na. That was called, yeah.
今週の水曜日は雨だよ。山は大きいね。雪は冷たいな。
Okay. Alright. And then we got the yo and the ne, but not the na. So we'll just add it to our list of endings. What were the cautions? Desho and daro are more desho, the more popular ending with desho is what I would default if I'm speaking to a stranger, or maybe like trying to be a little bit more considerate. So instead of saying ne, like you know, 今週の水曜日は雨でしょ, right? でしょ as opposed to da. Or maybe ame des desho. No, just desho actually. Interesting. That's a good question. What if it needs a copula? Anyways, there's desho and daro. Daro is the even more forward confirmation. What else we got for caution? What was the yo? Oh, it's either. This is not a unique rule for yo. Do you notice that there is a da after the noun, but not the e adjective? Oh, yeah. That's why I was making the same argument here. I'm like, well, it's ame, so ameda would make it a little weird to say desho, but interesting. Yay. What do we got? So there are many sentence ending particles besides yo, ne, and na. Actually, we already met another of the question, particle ka, right? Let's compare some and see how yo and ne can even be combined. Yo ne. You make me feel a certain way. Well, that's a little spicy. We will meet all sentence-ending particles at some point, so there's no need to remember them all now. Here, let's see how just by changing the sentence-ending particle, we can change the whole tone of a statement, which you would have to feel, right? At some point, you would have to feel these endings. So like, 今日は暑い. 今日は暑い. Today is hot.
今日は暑い。
Right? Even in English, when you say today is hot, it's like, oh, okay. You don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, right? Or like, there's very few emotions behind it. The grass is green. Speaking does impart feelings in it, so it's more like today is hot. More like it's not the same as today is hot. So prosodic stress aside, so if we normalize without prosodic stress and whatnot, like different emotional stressing, if you say today is hot, it's neutral, like a unfilling robot. Today is hot. So that's more like what the feeling is supposed to be, right? And then 今日は暑いね. Now you're kind of like urging the person to agree with you, or like you're agreeing. It's a mutual agreement, like right? Like, 今日は暑いね.
今日は暑いね。
Obviously, you can go high or not. Then there's, and then now we're being like, hey, did you know today is hot, right? Today is hot, just so you know, or for your information, right? So, 今日は暑いよ, right?
今日は暑いよ。
Oh, that's a little bit more punchy than I thought. Oh, and this one I do not. Oh, that explains the today's example. So how does this work? It adds a lot of force. Okay, so he's even stronger than yo. I see.
今日は暑いぞ。
Oh, that I'm probably not going to use too much, but I do need to understand that someone's and that kind of makes sense. It was inferred. And then we have na, which is to show self-reflection on a feeling or thought. Kind of like kana, like I wonder situation.
今日は暑いな。
Yeah. 今日は暑いな, which has a bit of a trail time in my opinion. It almost feels like 2 beats. You know what I mean? Right? Yo ne are also common used together as yone. Yeah. This combines the assertiveness of yo and the friendliness of ne. I would equate it to saying, like, Bunpro is awesome. Bunpro is awesome, right? Versus Bunpro is awesome, right? Like, there's a punch, right? There's a punch, and in English, usually there's like a stronger volume or a prolonged emphasis. So, like, the teacher is also tall, right? Versus the teacher is tall, right? So yone,
先生も背が高いよね。
Okay. Anyways, beach day. Oh boy. 2 people having vastly different. So the greater question is, are you girl A or are you girl B? And if you want to be a more neutral way, are you person A or person B? I don't know. I'm feeling person A's. I'm feeling person A's suggestion. Although skiing and what looks like obviously non-alcoholic beverages, teehee, is what the suggestion is.
リサ、海がきれい。今日は天気がいいね。ユカ、そうだね。冷たいアイスクリームが欲しいよ。リサ、私も。暑い夏は冷たいビールもいいよね。ユカ、うん、このビールおいしいね。
They're talking about beer. So.
リサ、うん、おいしい。冬のビールもいいよね。寒い季節はワインもおいしい。ユカ、私は夏がいいな。リサちゃんはお酒が大好きだね。リサ、うん、私はお酒が大好き。
I was joking about the non-alcoholic beverages. They actually spent a lot of time talking about alcohol. So let's hit up these translations, right? Right. 海がきれい, right? 海がきれい, or the trailing. This is for trailing. So, in my opinion, this can qualify for a different type of accent in the end. But the sea is beautiful, right? 今は天気がいいね. As for a confirmation, right? Today the weather is good today, right? And then そうだね. That's to confirm. So as in right. そうだ. So I see, or it is so. It is so. And then ね is the confirmation. So そうだね. And then 冷たいアイスクリームが欲しいよ. I would like, I want a cold ice cream. So 私も as in me also, same. The word is same. 私も is just same. In Gen Z, same. And then we have 暑い夏は so hot summers. 暑い夏は concerning, right? Concerning summer, concerning hot summers. 冷たいビールもいいよね. So having a cold beer would be good too. Concerning summer. So I'm more like reading it the way I understood it or how I feel about it. Not obviously it can be read as me too. Cold beer is good for a hot summer too, right? You don't necessarily have to read it in that order. In my opinion, English is flexible enough where you don't necessarily have to say like concerning the hot summers, cold beer would be also good, or it would be good. They didn't actually say. Well, technically they did, as opposed to two, right? Like I don't use two very often. So then to agree, right? このビール, so this beer, right? このビール, and then there's a comma there because oftentimes it is still concerning. So it's saying concerning this topic, concerning このビール. 美味しいね, right? It's tasty, right? This is a structure that I feel makes like in my opinion one of the for me a big differentiating part about Japanese that helps orient the Japanese talking. They like to identify what things are concerning with, and then they say something else. Concerning this, something else. Concerning this, something else. Concerning this, right? And then concerning this, characterizing, that's something else. Concerning this, characterizing, that's something else. Versus that something else doing something to what it concerns, which is the English order. The something else doing something of which it is concerned with. So the subject is doing something to an object, right? And that would be a natural way of English looking at a topic. And for myself, it can be either. when I speak to my parents in Chinese, the order is different too. The conditions on which the thing is happening of the subject that is in it, what they're doing. So in Chinese is consistently what are the conditions of which someone is acting something. That's usually how it goes. So as opposed to declaring the subject or declaring the topic, you're establishing the scene, establishing the conditions, introducing the subject, and then saying what's happening. So all three of them have a slight like priority difference. And for me, I set that in English as though I've been doing it for a while, because in English, if I'm using the common language of English, English is I used English as the flexible vehicle to characterize the order in which I think about Chinese and Japanese over like the course of my life. So it is not unusual. Like when I first heard like Yoda, for example, people talk about Yoda all the time in Star Trek. It's not Star Trek. Oh my gosh, I just made an unintentional Freudian slip. When we're talking about Star Wars, right? When we're talking about Star Wars, it's popular enough in which when you change up the order in which the priority of the meaning of English, it's very noticeable. However, for myself, Yoda was a variant of how English could be organized and still make sense. And you can do that when Bunpro guys are typing up these grammar stuff. Inevitably, they would have to do that. They would have to explain something using English as a facsimile or a bridge for comprehension. And for myself, it's read very naturally, even without saying, yep, this beer is tasty. I see, yes, concerning this beer, good taste, right? That's fine. Yoda was a variant of English, did you say? I would say for a lot of people who are young and impressionable, Yoda would be their first exposure to how English could be changed up. And they could be changed up in a way that when you do it enough, it can be automatic. It can be habitual. So Yoda's thing is closer to Chinese. Like the way he sounds, like it sounds really wise, right? When he says clever he is. And if you're thinking about like how is Chinese translated, if you're trying to exude a wise man, it's not that dissimilar when you try to translate Chinese. Condition, the person, the action. Condition, the person, the action. So wise is the condition. He is subject, and who you like the relationship, right? Hard he kicked. So for me, when I heard Yoda for the first time, like in English, I'm like, oh hey, he reminds me of like a Chinese drama. But like, because I translated most of my life. Like when I listened to my parents, I translated most of my life. And I would have to do translation and interpretation for them. So it wasn't as big of a jump. And that's not saying that it's bad or good that it's happening. It's more like it should be, I'm encouraging people to be excited because English can be understandable when it's out of order. So one of the tasks a lot of times when someone says how you get used to Japanese is that you have to also feel and understand why Japanese order things the way they do, right? Like, oh yeah, I keep forgetting that the verb comes last and the direct object comes before the verb and the topic comes first. The idea is you're trying to embrace it. And if you want a closer bridge, speak English like it. The thing about English is it doesn't have to be English. It could be whatever your native language is. Understand your language well enough to contextualize it in a different language. That's a fun challenge. I'm not saying it's appropriate or you might not find it fun. Obviously, most people don't find it fun because, like, who wants to sound like Yoda all the time? I don't know. You know, me, perhaps I think. Me, perhaps I think is pretty good. Anyways, that's one of the things that I enjoy about challenging yourself to think that you can make the connections, right? Humans, obviously coding is a whole different story, like coding languages and whatnot. You can still think like that, right? Like if you're learning a coding language, I use coding language as a litmus test for my logic. So logic is a lot of times the barrier to adopting another language. Like if English's logic doesn't, line up with Japanese logic, you have to form a new logical connection between the two in order to eventually comprehend it and embrace it or choose to reject it or mechanically try to practice it into your ability, right? Conlangs operate with an expectation that you understand its logic, like the class-oriented or object-oriented type of design of the Python script. And this stuff helps. Like natural language has humans, use natural language, and humans constructed the script language. Yeah, OOP, exactly. So being able to embrace that through practice, you can choose to embrace that through practice, like practicing enough to become second nature, or you can do both. You can encourage yourself to find the relationships between them that creates comprehension. That is what my mantra is. When you associate and successfully correlate analogous comparative analyses, associate with your existing body of knowledge, that comprehension will come along the way. Because now you can explain, like, oh wait, when I'm speaking English, I could also speak English like I'm speaking Japanese, right? Today you I talk to, or technically today you today you talk, right? Today you talk. Today you talk. That is probably the order in which you want to say it, right? Like concerning me, watashi wa, right? Watashi wa you, anata, right? Anata o hanashi, or hanasu, sorry, hanasu. So, or you could speak Japanese like English, exactly. And that's what I typically do. I do the reverse too. If I need to explain in the future, if I need to explain to someone what is the English order in Japanese, I imagine that. I legitimately imagine these scenarios. Like, yesterday, was it yesterday? It was yesterday. I went to the post office, and my father, here's a anecdote I saved for yesterday, but I didn't get to it. I went to the post office with my father to get my passport renewed. It's been 10 years since our last passport, and it was going to expire yesterday. And we went to the post office, but on the drive to the post office, my father asked me a question concerning our neighbor across the street, right, across the cul-de-sac. And he asked, like, hey, so how do you say die? Like, how do you say, like, someone died, or what the thing? And then he tried to say it, like, and he kept saying past something, like past, and I'm like, Asta? I'm like, I don't know. And then he eventually said passed away. And my first thought is, okay, so how do I explain this, right? And then what immediately I went to, okay, so how would I do it the other way around? So I would say 死. So die is 死, which is kind of a really strong word. 死 is like the character itself is death, and death is very strong. It's forward, probably very formal, like formally used as well, like someone has died. Now, then I started saying, okay, well, passed away. It could be go, like go 去, or go. Go. I know it sounds like go, but or 过. Sorry, 过. 过 is to pass through, right? And then 去 could mean to leave, to go somewhere. So 过去 would be a way to translate the English using the Chinese I know. So passed away, as in passed through and left. And then I would describe it, it's more of a euphemism. So instead of saying like someone is 死了, like someone has died, like he has died, right? I said something like, oh, 他不在了, 他不在了, as in that person is no longer here. That's a euphemism that Americans use very regularly. They're no longer here, or they have passed away. So 他不在了 meaning they're not in the house anymore, or not present on this plane. And to explain 过去, I talked about the visualization of someone crossing the bridge, like in spiritualism. In Chinese spiritualism, there's certain sects, not all Chinese obviously, that think about the idea of passing over the river Styx, or passing over to the afterlife, or beyond this plane of existence. So 过去 would be something I would combine those two characters and elicit that same feeling of passing away. The idea of passing away in Americanized English, because passed away is kind of a euphemism that there are particular British speakers that prefer that it's just die, right? Like the person died, not passed away. Like they're not passing anywhere. And then when you think about spiritualism, how did the here and not here came across to your father? Contextually, since Chinese is a contextual language, we already talked about how we're talking about death. So 他不在了 would be considered as death. How old is your father? You don't mind me? He's 66. Yeah, he's 66. Yep, he's 66. The idea is our neighbor across the street was probably a decade older or more, like at least 1 to 2 decades older than my father. So they're no longer alive, basically. They passed away. And the new tenants, the new people that live there are related in some way to them. So old age. So the thing about Chinese is when you talk about a subject, the characters themselves take on the context of the topic. So here would be contextualized to death. Not here is death in the context of our conversation. That's one of the feelings you have to get into when you're speaking Chinese. Characters, I think it was you and I who talked about the intricacies or like the nuances of Chinese language. Characters themselves have particular meanings per se attached to them. However, Chinese is a contextual language, even more so, in my opinion, than Japanese. Better or worse, the idea is because we were talking about 死, then 不在 can be contextually meaning no longer here, like as in no longer alive. 在 is a form of existence. So the character means existence, like it's the person existing. So 在 could mean here, like I exist now here. or like no longer in existence. So not exist, as in dead, right? But you're avoiding using the character 死, which is death. That's why I said 不在了. They are no longer here, like in a past tense. They are no longer here. And I combined those three characters. And that's kind of the way I would do it in reverse. So in order to capture the analogous feeling of the motivation of why someone would say passed away as opposed to the person died in English, it would be a similar relationship in saying, instead of saying 他死了, 他不在了, as in, so that's how I captured the analogous feeling. Instead of saying he died in Chinese, 他死了, he died, 他死了 is past tense, 他死了, I told him 他不在了, that person is no longer here. And that contextually it would fulfill the role of why someone would use passed away as opposed to die, especially an Americanized person would use that, because passed away is typically used as a euphemism when it's recent. Like the person has not overcome, like now I'm going to tie into familial feelings like emotional intelligence or practice in the United States. Passed away when something is recent and maybe people are still grieving and mourning period, they would typically use the word passed away. And then when it's like maybe 5 years, a grief and mourning has happened, usually most people then would likely default to the word died. Oh, my father died a long time ago. Or like, for example, I would say my grandparents died a long time ago. If there is still residual type of recency or lingering things, typically I would say, or characteristically of Americans, they would use the phrase passed away. As in, it's still coming to pass, like they're still working on processing the act of passing, a person is passing away from their like sight or presence. It's interesting. At least that's making a bigger, deeper deal than I would say maybe some other people would consider when they think about linguistics and behavior. For myself, these things are very important because I really suck at, I think I'm pretty deficient at helping people with grief and mourning, especially when it comes to like that type of circumstance. So I take more effort and I double down. Someone asked me earlier before this stream, like, well, how do you work harder on your problems? And I'm like, I work harder. And it sucked because it's too pedantic to describe. The idea is if I see a problem that I'm deficient in, I would literally try to do and focus as much effort as on it. And one of them is the next stage in my life, right? One of the bigger stages in my life that's going to come up is going to be grief and mourning and death. So it's also not a big coincidence that Persona 3's main theme is also death, like one of the core essentials, or more like life in the context of death. So if you're wondering like, is that the reason you're playing Persona? It's actually one of the reasons. I rarely make like decide voluntarily to do things without like 14 or extra layers of importance. So, and I try to explain most things. If I don't have a choice, that's a different story. Like if something happens and I didn't have a choice or control over it, it can be trite. I could dislike Protocol. I don't know if you ever, I feel like you might have asked me this in some shape or form. Yesterday I had to answer the question, have I ever done anything? It's a typical question. So have I ever done anything in which I dislike? Like surely you have done something that otherwise turned out to be something you dislike. And I say the same thing as always. Typically, I would say that I never choose, or I try to never choose to do something that I would dislike. And I explain the motivations. I go in liking it for a purpose already. Like, Procall, that video that you linked to me about Dr. Mike and Dr. K's conversation about applicability and individuality with actually the practice that Dr. K eventually introduces in that video. I am watching that video for a reason. So I will develop a fondness and likeness to watch it. I have voluntarily chosen to watch that video. So the choices that I make, like the things that I stream, my choice to speak to you and whatnot, those are choices that I make. So I don't typically enter those contracts or those decisions without heavy layers of importance. Now, when things happen to me, like my boss or something out of my control, that was my answer to that person. Of course, my life has had things that I dislike in the moment or don't dislike, or things turn for. But I'm not usually when I was speaking in that context, I usually tell them I'm talking about my choices. I don't often choose, if ever, choose to do something that's not important to me. That is something that I want to echo and demonstrate to anyone who constantly like sit there and say, what's the point of living? What's the point of doing this if I'm not going to be good enough? Or what's the point of doing it myself when I can just watch someone better do it for me or do it to show me? That's what I want to emphasize. When you have a choice, choose not to do something that is unimportant to you. For example, if you choose to doom scroll, make doom scrolling important to you. Otherwise, in my opinion, drifting through life feels like drifting through life. And this is where I would plug Persona games. Because Persona games, the main theme of that underlies all the Persona games is that go play it like a dragon game. Well, like a dragon game is that too. Story writing in general, narratively driven things present situations to the character, and they typically are going to have to explain why or how they're going to do it, right? Unless you truly want a game that doesn't have those. By the way, very popular games have those, for the record, in the actual game. A FromSoft game, the character themselves do not have the motivation to do something or a reason to do something. It is dependent on the player to bring that motivation with them. In my opinion. Like, yes, and then you're going to argue, well, FromSoft games are made so that you're encouraged to explore. You're encouraged to explore. Like, you need the motivation. You have to motivate yourself through the creation of other people to motivate yourself. A narrative game requires whether you understand their motivation or reasoning in order to get close to it, or be open to, even if you can't relate to it, be open to understanding their circumstances. So Persona games are very excellent at talking about these topics. That's how we got into the dislike thing, like dislike and appreciation. This person that I met, like, so going back to what news in recent days, and Beth was around too, so we actually had a double feature yesterday. Led to a really long conversation that was wonderful about comparing and contrasting about politeness, etiquette, the motivation behind politeness and etiquette. The thing that I feel me and Beth might needed to share yesterday was the idea of Japanese etiquette. So, like, Japanese practice this concept of honne, and what was the other one? Tatemae. So tatemae is the thing that Beth likes about Japanese people, which is all the practices of proper decorum in your public persona. So she was talking about, and this time I mean persona, not persona the game, but persona the facade, or like the mask or the code etiquette that you have. Like for me here, while we're streaming, is to, and then the honne is the inner emotions stuff. So you keep them separated. And Beth was talking about how she enjoys how Japanese people are largely like very polite and agreeable when talking about topics of passion, like her favorite musical group. And my thought, we were comparing and contrasting, because then I was playing devil's advocate. I was going to contrast, like, well, you don't know if they're not upset, right? Like she was suggesting, oh, because they're really polite, it's inferring that they're not upset. And my thought is like, from the, not that I'm saying you can't be coincidentally happy and in agreement, but the practice in Japan, which does extend to China with a few exceptions, but to China, which is what I grew up in, honne and atemae is partially preserved, or like communicated in China. You separate your feelings from your public decorum. So reading that as a projection of someone's feelings when you're entirely engrossed into like the Japanese culture would be misaligned, or tend to be more misguided than not. That's a projection. So a Western projection, a Westernized projection into Japanese culture of politeness is often a misconception in like online. Being polite is not quite the same as being expressive of one's feelings. So it would be very fallacious, or arguably fallacious, to presume that they're being polite and you know how they feel. And then this will lead into our discussion protocol about Star Trek and Spock. Japanese is closer to Spock, where you can still feel things. You can choose not to present it because of active practice. Practice, decorum, social structure. That is what I grew up in. And then I conceded to Beth because for me, that's what I prefer to do. So when I'm streaming, that's what I'm doing. The reason why I love Persona 3, I told Kafris this before I started streaming today. The reason, and whenever I stream Persona 3, I say this a lot. The reason why I really like Persona 3, I played Persona 3 when I was 18 years old, is because I identified as the character, the MC character. I didn't wish to have what the MC character had, which is what I get my impressions from whenever I talk to someone who's Westernized. They like the character because the character was surrounded by the ability to say the right things, be loved by everyone, have what word did I say? Oh, fallacious. Sorry, fallacious. I don't know if there's an I here because English is hard. Fallacious. Fallacy, but in the adjective form. Fallacious. It may be fallacious to think projecting Westernized emotional expression. Like, hear me out. It gets longer. Let's take a step back. The context in which Beth mentioned the Japanese situation was in the context of sensitivity when expressing opinions in the Westernized world. We were specifically talking about Sho's question. Sho's question was, do you think that or not really, Sho made a statement saying he really likes how spiritualism, mysticism, and different religions are cross-presented in persona, and he was wondering why American media would not do this. So we're gonna do some leap of logics here. So you can probably fill in the blank, Procol, since we delve in this quite a bit. American media has hyper-religious fractionization. So because of that hyper-fractionization, it deals with the diversity of their subject matter. So when we talk about spiritualism, Americans have become the punching bag for fractionalization of religious presentation. And because of that fractionalization, which aligns with its diversity, right? Its diversity in religious appeal, it is conflicted within the country and from the perspective of someone who has a monocultural appeal. So like from a Japanese perspective, persona can be presented while adopting other spiritualism, because Japan rates on one of the lowest developed countries, right? Like the countries that have soft power, right? I even brought up soft power in our discussion. Unfortunately, that this person wasn't there. Like for the soft power discussion, Japan is one of the countries at the top 10 of soft power per se, right? However you want to measure it. I have my ways. Higher soft power. However, they have one of the lowest fractionalizations. Fractionalization reminds you of NetSpeak as you think of quantum fragments when you say, oh, yeah, okay. So you probably wonder, like, how do people measure diversity, right? And there's one person who is kind of like been known to try to measure fractionalization when it came to linguistics, nationality, and religion. So Japan scores across the board one of the lowest fractionalizations. So it is incredibly homogenized, relatively speaking, to the point that was being made about Americans' portrayal, like American media's portrayal. So it becomes very non-normalized. It's non-standard for American media to tackle such a large fractionalization in religion. And because of how the internet works, typically it's an easier punching bag to see the fractionalization when American media presents it versus a coherent presentation from a country that produces media with low fractionalization. There's less noise. There's an arguable, identifiable, coherent picture. So Persona is a great example of it. Persona combines multiple cultures' religion, uses their gods and goddesses, and in part mysticism, shamanism, various different things from the lens of Japanese like perspective. However, Japanese perspective is not fractionalized. So there's no like misappropriation, appropriation, or like constant internal struggles of design choices. In the United States, when it comes to the topic of spiritualism and like religion, that this person is from New York, so we both have a similar somewhat background when it comes to exposure to the ongoing religious discourse when living in a diverse, fractionalized country. By the way, according to this person's metric, again, grain of salt because I don't quite know all the details of the methodology, the United States is second to none. The only other place that, based on this person's metric, again, is still one person's metric, accounting for all the countries, I think South Africa is the other one, and it's by a large margin. So the thing is, the United States is disproportionately higher in soft power, right? So that means its appeal, its influence is seen far on a different magnitude, and linguistic fractionalization is right in the middle of the pack. So it's slightly above average. It's not the lowest, it's not the highest, And then ethnicity and nationality makeup is slightly above the average. Not on the bottom of the pack or the top of the pack. Japan is at the bottom of the pack, without a doubt, on every metric. That is one of the rare occasions where there's a country with a lot of soft power. However, their perspective is incredibly unified. It's incredibly coherent. That's what makes Japan very recognizable, right? When you ask, how do Japanese people act? We're talking about it. When you ask someone, how do you sound American? I don't know. What type of American are you gonna ask? And guess what? Let's make it about Great Britain, right? Like United Kingdom. United Kingdom has a similar profile among the countries with top 10 soft power. So you and I would have that similar feeling as well. Now, long story short, now we get to the punchline. Sometimes we appreciate things because we project what we want to see them. And other times, it's exactly what it is. So in this case, Beth was trying to say she found a lot of solace and welcoming because it's less exhausting when people, like from time to time, depending on her mood, it's less exhausting when she's surrounded by polite people. Right? Sorry, I'm having cross-talk now. She found it less exhausting, and I agreed with her. Now, the statement that I was wary about, that I wanted to present a perspective, is that the politeness is not the same as emotion. Emotion is a westernized concept, like to reveal emotion. That's what makes it exhausting. It's emotional. What's rewarding, now it can be negative or positive. I think when someone is very emotional with me, it is also have the propensity to be exhausting, but also rewarding. When it comes to the practice of tatemae, right? Tatemae in Japan, it's to remove that exhaustion. So when you're practicing to curate your own persona and be polite, you're removing the exhaustion of the emotional impact of your things in order to lower the stress. Now, it is also less rewarding as well. That's what happens. You know less about that person. You're trying to maintain decorum. There's less feelings in it. So there's a trade-off, pros and cons, right? Let's see. Are you going to play Power World, or do you plan to? No, I don't plan on playing Power World. Sandbox survival games, we've done quite a lot of them lately. It seems like that's Procol, the last couple of games you brought up, it seems like that's kind of your thing, right? Like I like Subnautica a lot more, where it uses weighted resource gathering. Power World is the Valheim structure, which is the horde and scalability and micromanagement and hoarding type of survival thing. So Power World had his 1.0 launch. I actually shared that with Coffers if he wanted to play Power World. They've been doing really well. For myself, I much like Subnautica's weighted resource gathering versus the excessive, like, satisfactory type of situation, right? So other than that, I imagine you really do enjoy your survival sandbox games. So yeah, I would have brought Power up a little bit earlier if we spoke earlier about it. Weighted, so Subnautica, the resource gathering is made so that they weighted it in a way that when you enter like an environment, there are certain occurrences of the resource in order to meet a checkpoint in the pacing of the game, as opposed to using it as a metric of how much time you would repeat an action. So there are two, in my opinion, there are two ways of resource gathering designs. Time of acquisition. So these both are types of milestone designs. So this happens a lot when it comes to like mobile games. Not that I'm saying Power World is a mobile game, but it's far more common in mobile games where they use the time and determine the amount of resources in terms of its time allocation, like how much repetition of an action can you do to unit time. Subnautica is weighted. So what I usually use when I say weighted is how many trips after the exposure. So like when you enter a new biome, how many instances of the action is necessary by the time you exit a biome? Like you want to exit a biome after it's explored. So it's weighted. It's not geared towards, so this is heavier in sandbox design. Weighted is heavier in exploration. That's the word I would use. So when it comes to like milestone gathering, like resource gathering, if it's a weighted design, it's heavier in exploration. So you're not sitting there waiting to accrue something as your exploration is going. And then time is how many instances irrespective of time per instance? Like how many instances irrespective of time per instance? Sort of, yeah. So like, for example, when you enter Subnautica, right? And you enter a new biome. When you finish exploring the biome, have you collected all the resources you ever need to move on to the next biome? Right? And then how often do you have to go backwards or backtrack to gather more resources in order to move forward? Those are weighted considerations. Now, in Power World, it's a sandbox. So you're looking at as how many instances of a repeated action that you have to do in order for it to be a reasonable amount of time in which it doesn't create negativity, right? Like, for example, Minecraft. When you go into Minecraft, you have a certain threshold to meet, a certain amount of resources to gather, but inevitably it is as there's no upper cap. Like you're not considered a weighted average. You can hoard as much as you want. So then the sky is the limit. So Power World is determined by how long someone is willing to consistently acquire more and more resources. Subnautica is designed weighted in the way of exploration. If you're going to collect something and you keep collecting the same thing from a same biome over and over again, exploration becomes secondary. Yeah, it's heavy. Well, it's heavily tied to levels. That's what I mean. That means it is weighted towards level if you're using the same terms, but it's weighted towards time. How long it takes you to level. The perspective I'm talking about here is the purpose, the motivation of the player, not the mechanics of the game. So like Power World prioritizes how long it takes to level, which is a substitute for time. Subnautica prioritizes exploration, which is not tied to level. Exploration can occur very rapidly if it is weighted towards exploration. If it's weighted towards time, then you can spend a lot of time in Subnautica in the same place. You might even have to go back to the same place over and over again to collect things, right? So for myself, this type of design is not as friendly to me anymore. JRPGs have this design too. So whenever you think about a JRPG game like circa 2000, I talked about this in Persona 3. So if you're using the word wait as in the English word wait it, like to weight something, like to take into consideration, then yes, it is weighted based on level, which is equivalent to time. When a player thinks about leveling, they're thinking about how long it takes to. Can you bullet point the motivation for each? How much time do you have to acquire resources? Versus, is the resource preventing me from moving forward? So they still both overlap. One is sub and two is PAL. One is PAL World. Two is Subnautica. You're collecting resources in order to explore. Our world is to collect resources to hoard. So, how much levels can you gain? How many things you can collect? Now, now they do have both, by the way. Like, I'm not saying they're absent. So we're not saying zeros and ones. Subnautica you can still hoard things in Subnautica if you want. Like, you can collect all the creatures if you want. You can collect so can Power World, you could try to say, oh, I will only collect the minimum amount to level so that I can explore the next thing. There's probably designs in both. The priority is different though, which you can see in people's commentary. When you think of a character design, a lot of times there will be people who play a lot of survival like sandbox games, and they will make a distinction between the Power World design and the Subnautica design. And usually it's about the time it takes to progress in its major motivation. Sub is exploration. POW is acquisition. So you bring most of the things to you and how quickly you can gather them. You would disagree in Power when there's a lot of prevention over by exploration. I disagree that you understand what I'm saying. I actually agree with your statement. In Power World 1.0, there's a lot of prevention overcome by exploration. I agree with that. I don't know what you're disagreeing with me. I think I think you don't understand what I'm saying. I have no problems agreeing with you that Power World has a lot of prevention overcome by exploration. I literally said it still exists in Power World. The argument that can make me disagree with you is how much is a lot. For me, I think Power is 80% accumulation and prioritizing time over resource, which your resource is your XP. And then Subnautica is the reverse. It's the 80% towards exploration. And obviously there's prevention due to resource collection. An alternative way to demonstrate this is a classical JRPG. RPG like a Final Fantasy game, like Final Fantasy VI, and the Final Fantasy VII remake. The modernization. So FF6 XP prevention, like scaling, and it comes as a unit time. And then FF7, there's inputs and collection, right? And collection in the sense of skills and like finding the objects, finding the stuff, not accruing like 99, not accruing a specific source through repetition, but the novelty of another skill set or something like that, exploration. You infer that the extent to which power has prevention due to resource collection is as low as you inferred. You inferred that the extent to which power would have prevention due to resource collection is as low as you inferred. No, you're talking about prevention. I'm talking about motivation. So, you're talking about what keeps you from doing something. I'm talking about the motivation to keep you going. Not the same thing. It's almost the opposite thing. I don't want to play Power World right now because the motivation to play it is motivated by XP and level and accumulation, not the prevention of leveling up. Motivation is positive. It's not negative. You chose to decide to interpret it as a preventive measure. Subnautica motivates exploration. We're not talking about prevention. There is exploration in Power World. It is weighted for exploration. Power World is weighted for collection. Like the exploration is motivated by resource collection. I'm not talking about any prevention here. Like, I'm talking about motivation to play the game, not preventing you from playing the game. So, very different. I have to be really direct about this. You have turned my statements into negative statements. They are not negative statements. Just so I know, as I may have understood. 1, resource collection is motivated by prevention of progression? No. Or are you saying you think that? Okay, that is yes. And then collection is motivated by hoarding, the motivation being the main motivation. The main motivation is to collect things in Power World. Yes. And the main motivation in Subnautica is exploration. How they view their mechanical design is off that. So, like, you're exploring in Subnautica, which then reflects on its time investments. When you're collecting things, you can hoard at a great upper limit, as in you can play Power World for thousands of hours. You can also play Subnautica for thousands of hours as well, for the hoarding and the collection. They both exist. Exploration itself is my major motivation. That I agree that makes Subnautica playful. Exploration itself is a motivation, are you saying? No, exploration is one of the major motivations for Subnautica. Secondary to the hoarding of collecting, Power World is often emphasizing the opposite. You were making a case, which I agree with you, that Power World doesn't have to be prevented from not wanting to collect and hoard. Like, you can still explore. You can still play Power World for the sake of exploring. Nothing's preventing you from doing that. At least, nothing dramatic. Like, the accumulation of collection doesn't necessarily prevent you from wanting to explore Power World. And then if you add a leveling system to Subnautica, it doesn't prevent you from exploring in Subnautica, because we're talking about motivations, not preventions. All right, could you rewrite the bullet points of the motivation of both games when you first asked? So for motivations, Actually, the thing that we really talked about was weightedness. But so, Pal World. Collecting things is its major driver. And Subnautica is exploration. So we'll be trite here. So this, let's just use this, right? And then the bullet point that I was illustrating is the weight. So they both technically is weighted. They're both weighted. We can use your like term. I was just clarifying what I meant by weighted. So they're both weighted. They're weighted towards these things. When you are exploring in Pal World, your major motivation is still like it's largely still to collect things. In Subnautica, there isn't a weight to, there is a lesser weight to collect things. And when I meant weighted, the thing Subnautica is weighting is exploration. The thing that Pal World is weighted in is collecting things. What do you collect? You collect XP. Like you amass things like XP. Your, what do you call them? Friends? Pals. Sorry, pals. Now you can still do that in Subnautica, right? The thing is, there's a disproportionate time sink here, like a contrast in time sink. You can extract thousands of hours more readily when you're focused on the task of amassing things. There's a higher limit to it. When it comes to exploration, you could argue it's more streamlined. Because you'll, like, for example, Our World could be in early access for years and feel complete. Or loosely feel complete. Subnautica still needs to reach 1.0 because it must complete the exploration. Like, relatively speaking. When you play Subnautica and you're like, it's a 1.5 release, it's like, wait, but I won't get to see the whole thing? And in Power World, it's like, well, as long as you keep accruing, part of the ritual is to keep on accruing things. So when are they going to add the next thing? Whether it's complete or not, that's up to you. They can keep on, they can continuously add new things for you to collect. You can, Subnautica peeps can continue to give you more things to explore. And that's kind of, we can throw in other survival games, for example, like Forest. Well, you can, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Forest. I haven't played these games, by the way, so these are like, I'm deferring them from watching people play them. Forest and Valheim. So Pal World and Valheim have similar motivations. Forest and Subnautica have similar motivations. Like they're closer together. They're more comparable in their motivations. Forest is the act of discovering anomalies. I'm not sure if Forest has a leveling system. That would be outside my reach of my experience. I have played Valheim though. Valheim was the last game I played in the scheme of Pal World. So Valheim, you still want to hoard and collect. Now, they still have elements of exploration. So like Valheim has bosses and, you know, new biomes to look at. Right? However, they have an exponential time invested in the hoarding and like constructing, like base building and all that. And again, I agree with you. They exist in both. Like Subnautica has hours and hundreds of hours of base building. Now, you can pivot away to a game like Satisfactory in terms of the hoarding aspect. And then this Satisfactory then has a lower expectation weighted of exploration, and more so the higher expectation of resource gathering. There is a survival or kind of a survival component to Satisfactory, so that's at the other end of the spectrum. Now, there are other games that would lean even heavier to exploration as opposed to amassing resources as a secondary or a primary motivation, and that's games like Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds dispense with resource gathering and decide to completely make unique gathering. So Outer Wilds do still have collection. The collection is the collection of unique things, so no redundancy. There's a lack of redundancy. You do not collect like resources, but you do collect a resource, information, and the key items. So Outer Wilds entirely focuses on exploration by dispensing with redundant resource gathering as a prevention measure, right? I agree with you about what prevents someone from progressing. Our world has levels and exploration as a prevention for progress. So does Subnautica. The resource comes in a sense of you're building the equipment necessary, the milestone to progress. And one could also make an argument that the prevention is less so in Subnautica than in Power World, but Power World has that too. So they both have preventions. In no way do I say that stops me from playing the game. So I have no problems playing Power World on the basis of its prevention. P3 is very similar, Persona 3. JRPG games, their prevention is either the level or the exploration as well. Persona 3 requires that you climb Tartarus by repetitiously climbing floors that are randomly generated in order to gain access to the next floor. However, the next floor is also stopped by scaling. Basically, if your team is poorly equipped and they have low XP and they haven't been leveled properly, you can't advance even if you can explore the next area. So you can still explore areas that are beyond your XP, but it creates a prevention. Subnautica has milestones instead, like an equipment that prevents you from diving deeper. Dave the Diver also uses that structure, where you have to produce a key equipment, and that involves collecting the specific iteration of the amount of resources to construct the item in order to progress in the game, despite having the mechanical ability to explore something. So for myself, I think this game type will squeeze a lot more hours. And to beat around the bush, the reason when I'm not playing Power World at the moment is because it takes it's going to be a time sink. And it's a good thing for people who like to play Power World. It might not be auspicious for me compared to Subnautica, because Subnautica waits. It is a massive time sink. Yeah. So I want to make it clear, I'm only very passionate about this is because I'm not emphasizing that there is something preventing me from playing the game. I'm emphasizing what motivates people to play the game in the first place. So like the good things about it. Power World has a huge fan base. Like it is dwarfing Subnautica. Like we're talking about Power World is top 3 traffic And it's going to be probably top 3 traffic for a very long time because of its emphasis on what I consider as the indie darling horizontal investments. I love P5X because of the same reason. It's about collecting. You're hoarding things horizontally. Like, the more you collect, the better you feel, right? So the massive time sink comes from, I want to collect the world. Like Minecraft, you want to build everything. You want to make everything. Subnautica, you kind of know where the end is. And even though Subnautica waits that, it doesn't stop someone from spending massive hours of building a structure or crazy things. So they still can do that. The motivation by the design was not particularly for that. I would make the argument that the major motivation of the Subnautica developers is to explore what they have. Yes, you can build like skyscrapers. I don't know if you've ever seen those ones where like they build sky buildings, like the underground bases, and then they decide to build a sky look, so they just build the building all the way up above sea level, like above the water, so that they can look over the entire ocean. Like, that's what I mean. You can still do all of the things, for sure. Those are your motivations. I think the developers, though, if I had to project the developers, they want to motivate you to explore. So they want to keep releasing content, prioritizing the incentive of weighting the exploration over the hoarding collection. I kid you not, though, I did hoard everything. In like the submarine, like making your mobile base in Subnautica 1, that was so satisfying. So you can take all of your hoarding and all your collections with you at any time, like a mobile base design. That is the indie gold standard right now. I actually think Subnautica bucks a little bit at the indie gold standard. Like right now, one of the classical, the very heavy favorite design is mobile bases. So one of the mobile bases is so then you can explore and hoard at the same time. What do you mean sub bucks at it? So Subnautica could have totally decide to favor hoarding and then apply its exploration. If they could have waited, in my opinion, they could have waited heavily on this if, Crafton, in my opinion, if Crafton said, like, we want a game that soaks thousands and thousands of hours. And not a bad or a good thing, right? The idea is hoarding has a lot of incentives. It's a horizontal progression system. Exploration is a vertical one. When you're finished exploring something, you're going to replace it for your next journey. You can go back and explore that same place again. If everything was already explored, it's difficult to gain more investments in the exploration. So Subnautica could have changed their tune because there's the co-op, right? There's co-op. They didn't scale it to co-op though. Our World is also cooperative, right? Pal World is also cooperative. And actually, it's quite encouraged to hoard collectively because it feels good to hoard even more things and more efficiently. Get friends, and you can still scale up. Obviously, you can play it single player if you want it. Satisfactory doesn't require that you play it with multiple players, but you can most definitely hoard way quicker if you have more players. Terraria was a great one way back, and it still is, right? Terraria, when it comes to the weightedness of hoarding versus exploration. Survival games, in my opinion, like survival game, sandbox survival games, randomly generated, they often have a weight to them. And when you asked me, what do I mean by weighted? I was talking about the difference in the weightedness. So I said that Subnautica was weighted in exploration, and then Power World is weighted in creature hoarding, or like collecting in general. And I think collecting is the standard, is the great limitless potential of engagement. And Subnautica devs kind of bucked at that trend still. That's not to say they aren't immune to it. They were criticized when they did, in fact, did something like that. Like whenever an area has very few resources, so then you had to spend a lot of time combing through every like area for a spawn point, right? Because the game is quote unquote not complete yet. So like the later sequence resources are very hard to come by because the game is not complete. Like the area is not complete, right? All the extra resources. However, people were arguing like, oh man, why isn't it so readily available? Well, the exploration of the game is not complete yet. When it comes to like live service and mobile, I mentioned that it's very mobile based. So like there's not mobile bases, but mobile games. Mobile games promote hoarding, and hoarding is great. Pokemon cards are great. Creature collection is great. Building a base with excess luxury and accumulating to the sky's limit is great. Collecting everything and anything in the game and moving it to your base is great. So one of the arguable popular trends right now in the indie scene is to present a game that has a mobile base. So then you're exploring in your base and then you're hoarding at the same time. So now you get to explore while you're moving, and everything gets to be hoarded onto your mobile base. And mobile bases have become a little bit more popular to the point there are cozy versions of it, and action-oriented versions of it, and RPG versions of it. Pokemon card scalpers are not that great. Yeah, because they prevent the hoarding. They're the enemy, Brokaw. All those Pokemon card collectors, like if you're a Pokemon card collector, the scalpers are the enemies. It's preventing you. It's preventing you from hoarding. It's preventing you from collecting. If you know what I mean. I mean, unless the scalpers themselves are the collectors, usually scalpers would imply that they're selling them, as opposed to collecting them for their own, like, hoarding thing. So I agree with you. There are probably preventions due to exploration, and there are preventions due to levels. Scalpers are a form of prevention. I hope that was made. I wanted to make sure I'm being clear here. I was talking about the reasons to play, not the reasons not to play. So like, I wasn't making a comment on what is preventing you from reaching your goal. I was more thinking, what are your motivations to be playing the game? And I think understanding you, who likes Subnautica and Power World now, you like both. So if a game is designed to prevent you on both fronts, it could be a very gnarly game. Like, Power World hopefully does not prevent you from doing either of those things. Because personally, that would be a knock on your motivations. For myself, one of the reasons why I haven't picked up Power World yet, or in the future, is it is a massive time sink. I could definitely see myself playing thousands of hours because of its major motivations. The major motivation is to collect everything. And I don't have to tell you about my old teenager self I don't collect Pokemon cards for a very distinctive reason. Largely because hoarding is something I do a lot. And yes, one of the reason why I brought up time is because then I wouldn't be doing anything else. So like, I wouldn't say it's foretold, but obviously then I wouldn't be playing Persona 3 and all the other things, because hoarding is great. In my opinion, hoarding feels great. Not recommended. Not recommended for a lot of people, honestly. Like, you gotta be disciplined with it. I'm glad to hear you're really enjoying it. Are you playing it with your friend? Like, or with your family member? Like the person... You mentioned that you were gonna play Subnautica with a family member. So does that mean you're playing... Have you considered playing Palworld with a family member? Okay, we're gonna end this section, obviously, and move on to Hansahiro so we can get to the Persona 3 thing. What's the object you have in your house that you got when you were the youngest? The youngest object I got in my house. That's a very excellent question. I have a teddy bear from my grandmother somewhere in the closet somewhere. Yeah. Brown bow tie, black beaded eyes, pretty plush still. I think it was given to me before I was smart enough to remember things. So like, I don't actually even know. I was too young to know when I got it. That would be the oldest thing that I've ever had. And it's still there. I'm looking off to distance because it's actually in the same room. I don't know where it is at the moment though. It's like in a box. I should go find it. You'll have to give me a couple days. I could go and find it. Maybe even like clean it up a little bit and whatnot. Yeah. So is that no contest? That's probably the oldest thing. Yeah, no contest whatsoever. It's before I had enough conscious thought to know what it is or what it meant. It was probably before I could conceive object permanence. But how do I know I received it when I was younger? There's a photograph. There's a photograph of me that was less than 2 years old with the teddy bear. So that would be the oldest object. The photograph told me that I was in the presence of it. Here's an interesting thought. I don't know if you ever thought about this, Procol. When you take a picture, right? Let's say when you have a very young baby picture. If you didn't have anyone around you, how do you know it was you? I thought about this every once in a while, like, because in Persona, again, I'm making this about Persona because of the relevance. Most of the characters in Persona, they either don't have access to their parents or they don't have parents anymore. And oftentimes they rarely talk about like things that they have when they were younger or like things that they share with their parents. So imagine if you were an orphan and then you discovered a picture from your sense parents, and then you sit there and you look at it, it's like it's just you and an object, or presumably you. How do you know it's you? If it was a time when you no longer either remember it or you have no one to confirm that's you, and also you were too young to have any tangential associated memories to it. I thought about this quite a bit because in Persona 3 it explores existential crises. Like the idea of like, how do you know that you are here? And that's where I would tell myself it is the memories that you built that are passed on between people, right? So that's why I prioritize the emotional sentimentalisms that I build with other people. Because if you're constantly in the fear, consternation, and the fatalism and nihilistic tendencies of death, that's one of those things. I know that's a little heavier topic. Generally speaking, how do I make this related to Pow World and Subnautica? For me, Subnautica, the adventure of exploration, is what I want to share with someone with the limited time I have. Pow World, when you collect a lot of things, that is another way to build legacy. So you can accrue a lot of things as a way to demonstrate that you existed. It's a reminder that you existed, right? Of course, you could argue, well, Pow World is virtual and whatnot. It's like, yes, it is. So, however, for others, it's a catharsis. Like, for example, money. Accruing money is evidence of your existence. It's an evidence of your value. So, those are the choices that we make. And motivation brings it back around, right? We come back around to motivation. Motivation are the things that give your actions value. And then we go even further back to, well, when I choose to do something, it would probably be of many layers of importance. So the question is, are you saying I should play Pow World because you want someone to play Pow World with? Largely why I'm asking you if you're playing with your relative that you were expecting to play Subnautica with. Because I could get behind that. However, at the moment, I have no intention of playing Pow World. However, I could play Pow World for the sake of playing Pow World with someone else. That is a different story. Which, that's a different motivation. So my motivations are outside of Pow World. And Subnautica, even though I talked about exploration and whatnot. Because right now, I have not considered playing a survival game. Like a, not necessarily survival, but more of a survival sandbox. You would like to play Pow World with me? Okay. Well, we'll have to consider that then. We'll have to decide, like, in what capacity are you wanting to play Pow World? How long have you been playing Pow World, Protocol? This is where Coffers doesn't come in. Like, remember that time I played Terraria and some of my friends wanted to play Terraria, and then when I started playing Terraria, all my friends stopped playing Terraria. No, I'm. This is the punching bag. This is the punching bag voice that Coffers is referring to, where like I would take jabs at Coffers because he does things that I feel like would hurt other people, like would discourage other people, but I don't think Coffers is discouraged. Coffers is he's very independent. He does what he thinks. He makes things satisfactory regardless of how they turn out. So oftentimes one of the things Coffers would say is like, hey, I'm starting this game, and then like earlier on it would be like he would start playing and then his friends leave him behind in the dust, and then he would continue playing it for a bit and then stop playing, right? Nowadays though, Coffers found his jam. He's found the friend slop. We could totally make like a section about friend slop. I'm not saying Pow World is friend slop. And also, friend slop is not a negative thing, for the record. Friend slop is almost a boon, in my opinion. I think there's a place for friend slop to encourage people to play together. Like, play for not the idea of being good at something, but play for the idea of having fun together. Friend slop, right? So not like being efficient. So you have played 86 hours of Power. Dang. But you imagine 50 to 6 hours were from the early access version. Oh, so you played the early access version. I see. How long, like, across, like, have you played Power World and knew about Power World since we known each other? I talked about Power World when it was first released because of the controversy people brought up. Power's controversy from time to time. I see. Well, if that's the case, yeah, that would be a compelling argument to play Power World. What I do like about Power World is it's not a live service game. So, to give you a contrast or a comparison, Drama brought up Aeon 2. So like Aeon 2 is a live service game that is going to be released soon, like the global release. That's a live service game. So when someone asks me to play a live service game with them, that's a synchronous commitment. So I typically then would suggest that I want to gauge that person's commitment to playing the game. Otherwise, it would become another legacy that I carry over for a very long time. Like, if I play Aeon 2, then it would replace a lifestyle that I would have, and I expect that the other person would be able to reciprocate that. Our World is different. Our World is a self-contained game that is not a live service game. So there are no like limited windows or exclusivities or things that, you know, the prevention measures, the things that you would think about, like, oh, because you haven't done this, you can't do this, or you weren't here to do this and whatnot. Meanwhile, obviously, I still play P5X, which would be very difficult for me to suggest that someone play P5X along with me. It's not a co-op game. However, you can still keep up with me. The idea is I do not engage in that, usually because it's hard to reciprocate. You don't think so, but you do remember discussing it with you not that long after the initial. Okay. I'll think about, like, keep hold of the Power World thing. I could pick up Power World in the next major update if we're gonna play together, like 1.1, right? That is definitely on the docket. For now, because of my arrangements, like already arranged, we're doing Persona for the rest of the year, which have been planned for some time. It was planned before we met. I don't think you were here. Were you here when I was playing Like a Dragon games? Like the early... How long has it been? Has it been a year? So it was probably before. Yeah, the Persona games, like this month is Persona 3, P3P. Next month is P4G. Then it's Inktober. And then P4, P3R. And then Stranger Than Heaven. And then... Oh, sorry, P5R, Stranger Than Heaven, and then P4R. In that order. You think you were here when you were playing Like a Dragon? I wonder which one I was playing. Probably Infinite Wealth or Yakuza. I was talking about, I don't know if you know, but I played all of the Like a Dragon games and recorded them. So, the first Like a Dragon game, Yakuza 0, was 2.5 years ago. Sorry, 3.5 years ago. That's when I started. It took the whole year to do it. So that's what I'm doing now for Persona. So it'll take half a year because there's half the number of games in the Persona series. All right. I'll keep it in mind. I'll keep you up to date. I do keep track of like trending games. So I'll probably know when Our World 1.1 hits. And then we can like casually play. There was another game that I played with another person casually, and we played like twice, and then we never played again. That was Warframe. Maybe twice or 3 times. Yeah, Warframe. Warframe was the other one. That was like 4.5 years ago or more. Yeah, 4.5 years ago. The person played Warframe for thousands of hours, and then they said like, "Oh, hey, come play with me." And then I was given the tour, and then that was it. That's kind of one of those like downsides of live service games. Or it could be like Coffers, who like hop into Destiny, and then his commitments are different than his buddies, and then his buddies just leave him in the dust, and then they just immediately stop playing while he's still going about it. Again, Warframe and Destiny are live service games, so they're perpetual. I probably will draw my line typically at live service games. I think I'm far more open to like things like Power World. So I'll keep you in touch about Power World. I think that's a fun activity. Power World is like friend slop adjacent. We can also play friend slop games in the future. I'm totally game with that. I still remember when Coffers and I played Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. You remember that, Coffers? 5.5 years ago? 5.5 or 6 years ago? It was that bomb thing where like one person looked at the manual and the other person had to describe what it is, and you keep flipping and there's a timer, and then we had to do like Morse code, cut the wires, but I had the manual, or either you or I had the manual, and the person with the manual had to describe to the other person, but the other person had to describe what was on the bomb. We did that. Not on stream, but we like played it. That was before I record things like that. There's something like that on Steam that comes out. Yeah, that came out recently. Yeah, there's a new one. There's a new one of that. That's it's why I'm bringing it up. There's a new friend slop game that deals with it. What was the new angle behind it? Oh, it's monkey see, monkey. It's monkeys. One can't see. Was it one can't see, one can't hear, and one can't speak? So you have 3 roles, 3 players, and so someone has to sign language, which obviously leads to very comical things, and then the other person has the mic, and then the other person can only hear, right? Yeah, that's it. Bomb banana. Yeah, monkey see, monkey, the three blind monkeys basically, or like the monkey can't. I forgot what it's called. The thing with it, it's a folklore thing where one monkey can't see, hear, and speak. Anyways, we can totally play friend slop games in the future. All right, so basically these guys talked and confirmed about. Actually, let's go through this quickly. So I'm not sure if I want to do Hansi Hero. Or maybe we just don't do Persona 3 Portable today. like last time. Last time we also skipped on. let's see. So, 海が綺麗 right? 海が綺麗今日は天気がいいね right? So that's a confirmation right there. Got そうだね that's the そうだ plus ね and then 冷たいアイスクリームが欲しいよ right? 欲しい is to want. So you're emphasizing that you want ice cream. Then 私も same. And then we talked about how this is where we stopped. The order in which things are mentioned. Usually you refer to the topic. And then the subject, right? The subject. And then what concerning the subject. And honestly is kind of another confirmation. But, so, and then このビール concerning this beer. 美味しいね right? 美味しい So this is actually kind of special too compared to 美味しいね So they're not looking for confirmation, but they're stating it. However, in Japanese, you can state an e adjective as itself. That's kind of a neat thing there. This one I was I don't know what it means to be 冬のビールもいいよね よね which is winter beer. So I don't drink beer quite often. However, I imagine winter beer elicits a very specific beer. It's not to say it's beer during the winter, but it's a winter beer. Or it might be. It's kind of hard to know. Like, if in English, if you say beer during the winter, you can kind of see the connection by saying, oh, winter beer is good too, as in beer during the winter beer. Or is it winter beer as in wintry beer? Like something about the beer is wintry, not a beer in which beer you drink during the winter. So it can be both. So that's, in the case of the Japanese, or the way this how this is flowing, and the way this is constructed, I don't think it's a type of beer, like a winter beer, a type, like a Coca-Cola is a type of beer, Coca-Cola, or like a Sprite soda or a Coca-Cola soda, but more so beer during the winter, or beer from the winter, or a cold beer, so to speak. And then they say, yeah, and then they continued and said wine in cold season, right? 寒い季節は so like during cold seasons or of cold seasons, when regarding cold seasons, wine mo 美味しい as well. So the wine is good when concerning cold seasons too. And then that means or as opposed to yeah. And then 私は夏 summer 夏がいいな So summer is good, or concerning me, summer is good, right? Yes, it does say I like summer. However, it's a little different than saying I like summer. Summer is good. Like I think summer is good, which can infer that they like summer, right? This one I did not get. Lisa-chan, I'm guessing, is the person's name. Oh yeah, okay. Lisa-chan wa, so regarding Lisa-chan wa, お酒が大好きだね. So this is an address, right? even though it doesn't say, hey, Lisa-chan, technically. So regarding this, but you can also use it as a point of address. Kind of like, and you, and Lisa-chan, or in this case, she's talking to, I'm guessing the person is talking across. There is a Japaneseism here a little bit, where it sounds kind of off when you think about it from an English perspective, like a English perspective, but there's a deeper Japanese practice here. Usually, when you want to talk to someone, even if they're in front of you, you don't want to be too direct. So oftentimes you would use their name instead. It happens quite a bit in Japanese subtitle or like English subtitles of Japanese video games, where you hear oftentimes like, you know, Lisa-chan, Ken-kun, Sakura-kun, or something like that, and the people are in the same room, like they're together, right? However, instead of addressing directly to the person, they're addressing to the side of the person. So you're trying not to be direct. And I don't know how much of that intent has changed when you're online or something. Usually, even if you're gonna say like anata wa, right? Like you, sometimes you can simply refer to the person by name, like in the actual speech. And that to me came from like the nuance of trying not to be direct. So like, hey, you, versus, you know, ano sa, there's ano-sa or ane, or trying to get someone. That does come with a lot of friendliness too. Usually though, indirect reference to someone's name despite being right next to them is a far more frequent occurrence. So whenever like you get to like an English translation, right? Persona games are a part of it. English translation, you can hear the name more frequently, like Procal's name. This is related to the comment that I made earlier about it's kind of, it makes Procal feel like that emote that he showed me. However, it's one of those things where you're addressing someone, even if you're talking directly towards them, it's almost counterintuitive because it's being opposite. You're trying to not say, hey, you. It's like, well, who's you? Hey, are you paying attention? It's more like, hey, Procol, or hey, Coffers. Are you like this, right? Even though we are still talking to each other, right? It's a fun little idiosyncrasy that occurs quite often. And when a Japanese game is translated into English, and then the voice the actors who voice animated characters or even speak live action, whatever they're doing when they're speaking in English, you will hear their voice. You will hear their name far more frequently if it's translated from Japanese. So like that idiosyncrasy can be a little bit off-putting, or people would say it's off-putting because it occurs very frequently. Like, Sakura-chan thinks this is the way, but Ken senpai thinks it's this way. We should ask. So instead of saying like we should ask the teacher, oftentimes they would say let's ask the person's name, right? Like Ken's, you know, like Amada sensei. Let's ask Amada sensei, despite being like in the same room, or like, right? Or I could be talking and three people could be talking, and like Coffers is standing here. It's like Coffers thinks this, even though they're right here. Instead of going and turning around and saying you think this, that's too direct. And That's what happens in Japanese conversations. People mention their names very often. So when you're having multiple people in the room, you are still going to use their names more frequently instead of like using pronouns like, oh, he thinks, like pointing to the imaginary Kafirs, like, he thinks this is cool. No, it's more like Kafirs thinks this is cool, despite being there. Or even if I'm talking to Kafirs, I was like, Kafir, I can still refer to him, and that would be a more natural thing, at least more natural than the English one. Right, and that, 私はお酒が大好き. Right? Yeah. Because Yuka and Lisa are talking to each other. And we're gonna guess Yuka, this is Yuka. This is probably Lisa. So Lisa, no. Yes. Yeah, so Yuka said, hey, Lisa-san, even though they're standing they're right next to each other talking to each other. Right. That's one thing that I'm not sure if they're going to cover. It is a very classical pattern that you can hear in English. It's a far more vivid in English because, or like for some people who watch anime, when they're listening to like English dubs, when the anime gets dubbed in English, you hear names very, very frequently. And since san, kun, senpai, chan don't also occur very often in English, it gets exaggerated too, because you're gonna hear like ken-kun, right? I don't know, Tanamura-san over and over again, largely because that is how they it's a little bit ironic or counterintuitive. It's being less direct, much less direct. So the intent is like the opposite of what the effect is. Oftentimes when I interact with English speakers from a westernized culture, like it almost feels like it's more direct, like calling someone out by name. Like if I say Kafirs, suddenly he's like, what did I do? And then in my opinion, in Japanese sense, it's actually trying to not call you out directly by saying, hey, you, are you listening? Right? Or, hey, you like video games? No, it's more like Kafirs likes video games. So you're referring to someone in the distance or like someone else. Like, Kafirs doesn't have to acknowledge that that's him. I think that's one of the fun little things that I see whenever like people are interacting with anime. Like, oh man, why is it so cringe in English? Why do they keep saying each other's names and talking about each other like they're in third person or something? Like they're trying to be indirect. At least that's how I feel. They try to be indirect. Like if you don't want to refer to yourself and you refer to yourself in the third person, you're trying to be indirect about yourself. Like if I give an example, oh, a hypothetical situation. Say a stranger comes up to me and says, oh, Maku, what do you think about this? I'm referring to myself in the third person. You could say, oh, imagine if a stranger came up to me, right? And then frame everything as I. Like, I do this, I would do that. Third person typically means that you're distancing yourself from this hypothetical person. So I think that's the closest thing I can do to kind of display why, at least how I feel or interpret Japanese people use the naming convention. You can be talking to someone directly and they can still address you by your name to get your attention, or like to try to address you. It's a lot more comfortable if they're using your name because it's kind of distancing yourself from being direct. It's a weird little quirk. I think for the most part, it's felt in the English dub of things, especially high school anime. Like high school anime, when you're in like a classroom environment, the odds of that type of speech, like trying to not be too direct and talk about people indirectly, you use their names. You do not like refer to them very friendly like and saying he, she as though you know them and personable and whatnot. So you can observe that quite readily in Persona games. And when I'm reading them, the subtitles are very similar, at least for P3. I'm not sure about P5R, which is like the more modernization. They might consider having English writers to interpret the subtitles or interpret the lines for speech purposes at a compromise, like to compromise between the Japanese setting and the capturing the interpretive feeling of English. I don't know if they went as far as that. Like a Dragon games, the RGG crew tries to do that. They try to create an analogous feeling of English by making a compromise of the idea that those characters are technically still Japanese characters or Chinese characters. Or like for me, some of the Chinese characters behave like Japanese characters, or they speak like Japanese characters in Chinese. So, and then the English, there are various characters that sound like they're still there, Japanese characters speaking English things about Japanese things. So like they use the English to transliterate Japanese versus finding it an analogous thing, which is what I talked about today. So I'm going to end the Bunpro thing here as a way. When I was talking about my short story with my father about asking what does passed away mean in American English, right? Passed away, and trying to capture that feeling, it would come off as a slight unnatural way of using Chinese. However, it's a compromise. It's a compromise between English, my understanding of English and the culture of the English speaking context that I have, and the Chinese related context that I have. So that meets middle way. So it's neither going to be perfect for the native speaker in either case, right? Butai literally could mean like they're not here, but in the context of death, it can refer to someone no longer existing. That's kind of the deal, and I absolutely love talking about these things along with video games, right? Analyzing video games, motivation be darned, or prevention. It raises a lot of points. Like, if I'm talking about stuff that encourages someone to do things, what does it say about me? And how does that compare to someone who likes to frame things in a way of discouraging or preventing someone from doing something? It's a very important thing to notice, at least in my opinion. And juxtaposing them, like me and Prokal have obviously differing priorities when it comes to interpreting what is considered motivation. Usually I would be very proactive. I would think about all the reasons for me to play a game versus all the obstacles a game may present for me, like, or goals. For example, like a video game can be seen as a challenge or an opportunity. That is a great place to leave it to let others think about it. I have maybe a 4 or 5 hour presentation that I could do about the difference between seeing video games as an opportunity versus video games as a challenge to be overcome. So, like, video games either present you with obstacles that are getting in your way, and overcoming those obstacles give you reward for that. So that would be a motivation. The motivation is to overcome the obstacles the video game presents. And for me, my major motivations for video games is to look at what incentivizes a person to play and continue playing despite the obstacles. Like, so the focus is not on the obstacles, but the moment to moment, what keeps a person going. It could be the obstacle, so it could end up being one and the same. The focus is that I want to play a game for a reason, not for all the reason, not necessarily focusing on all the reasons that would stop me from playing or stop me from doing something. Largely because I think gaming is a privilege, and learning, like, sharing a moment and playing a video game with someone is a privilege, not like an entitlement or like a source of reward. Or it can be a source of reward, obviously. The idea is I prefer to have a motivation that grants me opportunities as opposed to seeing if I can complete it. I know that's kind of a little ironically coming from someone who likes to collect achievements. I like collecting achievements. If I can't collect an achievement, it doesn't destroy my motivation. That's one of those things. Like, if you talk to a Steam achiever, right? Like a person who collects achievements, or like a person who collects, it's not for all games. However, I already talked about my bane, which is live service games. Live service games, when you can't do something, you can't do it anymore. That sucks. So like, if the time ran out, you can't do it anymore. If the time passed, like FOMO. FOMO is one of the things that I'm making a comment about. The really big deep cut here is about the idea of FOMO. I like to be motivated by something not FOMO most of the time. So if someone asks me to play a game and it's a game they like, that would be my major source of motivation. Otherwise, when I choose to play a game, if I had to explain why I choose to play a game, it would be a motivation that is in line, or at least what I foresee is in line with the game. If the game is designed so that it is only rewarding in the sense of its accomplishment, I'll still play it. The idea is when I'll play it would be secondary. Do you have to beat a game to be satisfied with the video game? Coffers can answer that. Sorry, Coffers. Like, do you have to 100% a game to feel satisfied with a game? That's the type of thing I was talking about earlier. Know what you're motivated by, because for me, I hope that there are people who play things to make them happy and not play things because they have to in order to be happy. So like, playing a video game and not being able to 100% it makes that person upset, versus playing a game and having the opportunity to 100% it. And if you can't, you still played the game and had fun. Different sources of motivation. The motivation that, in my opinion, that Procol was emphasizing is the accessibility of the game to be rewarding. I was talking about the reason to play a game regardless if there are obstacles in the way. So like the design philosophy of why you would play. You would pick up Prowl World if you like to collect things, and you would more likely pick up Subnautica if you like to explore things. There are plenty of, and I would even argue that Power's design is far more addicting and therefore like far more motivating. It's far more motivating to constantly hoard things in this day and age. And if I have any evidence to support that, well, look at the traffic. Look at the bandwidth traffic between Power World and Subnautica. I absolutely love Subnautica. I haven't played Power World. I see people loving Power World as much as they like Subnautica, and vice versa. There are people who play both. The idea is the traffic tells a very different tale. Power World is like on another magnitude compared to Subnautica. Now, there's enough time for both if you play Subnautica first, at least in my opinion, personally. If there was an order, if someone's like, well, which one should I play first? Probably Subnautica first, because then you can reserve all the time you want for Power World. And that's what I meant by the time thing, just to clarify that the time sink is very real for Power World. Kudos to the developers of Power World, right? And no shade at Subnautica. Subnautica does what the developers want. It's recognized based on their design. It's kind of like being angry at a video game for taking up too much of your time. Well, was it intended? Was it the design? I think Power World's nailed it. Much like Terraria, Stardew Valley. I know Stardew Valley is not a sandbox survival thing. Stardew Valley is the other extreme where you're talking about building, collecting, amassing, hoarding in a casual sim game. All right. SRS, what are you doing? Like, and then we're gonna tie it back to Bunpro. So, what does SRS have to do with Our World? XP? What does Bunpro have to do with achievements? Badges? What does the addictive quality of collecting do? Badges, completion, progress, trackers. And then when you think about Subnautica, they come streamlined. The number can keep going up in a meaningful way in games that focus on collecting versus aka gamification, right? The idea is gamification. So the strategies that make someone sink more and more time into things is make the number go up. There's less consistency and time sink when you're investing and designing something with a finite like a vertical progression. When a game is focused on vertical progression, it can be tough to keep on vertical stacking. When you think of a horizontal way, that's a great way to present this. N5, N4, N3, N2, N1, and then have all of the stuff segregated. So then, despite N5, N4, N3, N2, and N1 being a vertical progression, which, by the way, it doesn't stop people from thinking that if you're N3, you don't need to know N5 or N4 anymore because of vertical progression perspective. However, when you look at the numbers, it's all of the above. You're collecting grammar points. You're trying to complete the grammar points. And as that number goes up, it feels good. And if they add, in the future, if they add N0 or something like, now it's miscellaneous, N miscellaneous or unclassified, they can add another number. And it will increase the lifespan of collecting. You know, collecting legacy. That's, in my opinion, the deepest of cuts, which is what the internet has normalized. Collecting likes, collecting views, collecting friends. Currency. XP is a currency. So is exploration. However, one is way more finite when it comes to the development cycle than the other. JRPGs definitely is a testament to that. Like, how do you increase the lifespan of a JRPG? Increase the level cap. Sufficient. How do you increase the lifespan of Subnautica? You have to design a new environment. Alright. Anyways. With that said, that's the end of Bunpro. We are a little bit behind. Again, gamble on people. To echo the long digression from yesterday, gamble on people. Always invest on people. I think at any other given day, I can make the number go up, right? I can consume more content, right? Or this discussion is worth having, always. Right, so until next time, that's a wrap for my Bunpro session. If you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu. Or listen to it, I suppose. Nowadays, I feel like it's more of a listening exercise than watching anything. So if you're gonna listen to this later, arigatou gozaimasu. As always, feel free to follow along. Pick up Bunpro for yourself. Go at your pace. Or engage with Bunpro in your way. Come on by, you're always welcome to yap and tell me how you differ in engaging and integrating all of things you learn from Bunpro. Until next time, minasan mata ne. Nite kurete arigato. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna get up, stretch, walk around a little bit, and I will be back for Hanzahiro. Thank you.